Uh, Foster, we'll start with you. What funding mechanisms exist to help Connecticut businesses strengthen their cybersecurity?
All right, we're going to do it. Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to start the public hearing for the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. We have, give or take, about 24 people who are signed up to testify. We are going to begin with our students so we can get them back to class. And then after that, we will do our public officials for the remainder of the hour up until 2, and then we'll go back and forth as most committees do, between public and our non-public folks who are testifying. So that said, number one, well, let me just, before we get to the first one, let me ask if my co-chair or good ranking members have any comments. No. Okay. All right, great. We will start. Xavion Valadon, I hope I pronounced the name right, and going to be joining us remotely. And let's see if they started. Xavion is on. I do not see Xavion. If we can always go back. Going once, going twice. No. Okay. Christine Allen. Christine is here. She was here just a minute ago. There's Christine. We heard you at the news conference. Christine, thanks for staying with us. Good afternoon. Appreciate your testimony. Oh, Xavion, hang on one second. We're going to have Christine go, and then we'll go back to you.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, if you press the red button there, right in front of you, and then you can just bend the mic. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Okay.
You got it.
Hi again. My name is Christine Allen. For those of you that know, I'm from Vernon, Connecticut. I'm currently a senior business management student at the University of St. Joseph. Following my graduation in May, I will start my early career at Pratt & Whitney East Hartford, Connecticut, so I'll be staying local for the next couple of years. I do want to say before that I do support SB 5, and please fund that. So I want to get off by saying that when I chose USJ and when I was senior in high school, I knew that a small college would mean a lot to me. Making those meaningful, personal, professional relationships and mentors was the one goal that I had going into college. When I was growing up, I was on Section 8 housing, food stamps, and government assistance. I want to reiterate again that to this committee that the tuition for my school currently is about double of what my mother and father make in a year combined. So you can just tell that when I was looking at colleges, it was going to be way, way too expensive for me. But when I found out about the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship, it has funded me and helped me be able to stay at the school that I want to stay at, and has given me so many meaningful experiences that I will cherish forever. And without this scholarship, like I said, I wouldn't have been able to attend USJ and get this experience that I could have gotten somewhere else out of state or in state. And I do support the increased funding for this scholarship as well. It's super important for kids like me to chase our dreams and go after what we want without that worry of funding in the back of our head. Because a lot of students like me were like, well, I personally work 2 part-time jobs to just afford just the basic necessities. So affording college was like one of the back burner for me. I don't know how I was going to be able to afford it. So with a scholarship, it's taken that some type of weight off my shoulder for sure. And so it's super important for us to keep having the scholarship and increase that funding for us. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. One quick question for you. I'm going to ask you to try to remember a couple years back when you were a high school senior. Do you remember when you found out about your Roberta Willis scholarship and that you were going to receive one?
Yeah, so I actually didn't know about the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship until I actually came to college. Unfortunately, I had no idea in high school about the scholarship. I actually had to find out through my amazing financial aid office over there. They told me about it and they told me to see what can happen. And when I petitioned the school, I was able to get that funding. But if you're talking in high school, I had no clue about the scholarship.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate it. Part of the reason I ask is that we're trying to improve the timing of it. So
Yeah.
high school seniors who are selecting the school that they're going to go, to know that they're going to receive a scholarship
Mhm.
because we think it's possible that it might influence where you end up going, right?
Of course, I think honestly, if I would have known about it, it would have actually like made me more, okay, I'm definitely going to the University of St. Joseph if I would have known about it in high school for sure, because that funding has made like a detrimental impact in my college career for sure.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions. Yes, Representative Akron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I did see testimony from another individual that put their information in, and they mentioned that other states, when you actually apply for go to school or FAFSA, that other states actually give you notice of grants that you're available. Do we have that here in Connecticut?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
In high school, no, I
Or when you
didn't hear.
start to apply for school, is
No.
there anything that automatic, so when you sit need base, they actually say, hey, these due to your income base or your, that you're actually get told of what are out there. So I appreciate that answer, and thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
of course.
Thank you, Representative. I do not see any other questions. Thank you very much, and
course.
thanks for taking a break from your studies. Good luck in the
course.
rest of your college career.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll go back to our remote student who's testifying, Xavion Valadin. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Yale College Democrats. And if you could just let us know, and this is true for everyone who's testifying, what bill that you're testifying on, that I think that would be helpful for all the members of the committee. Thanks very much, and good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I apologize. I am taking this from a dining hall. That's just how my schedule worked out today. But my name is Xavion Valadin. I'm a resident of New Haven, Connecticut, undergraduate student at Yale University. And from the perspective of a tuition paying student, I urge you to pass HB 5170 concerning fees charged by higher education institutions. First of all, this bill requires institutions of higher education to disclose all fees beyond room and board before requiring an enrollment deposit. With public four-year university costs rising over 35% in the last 15 years, transparency is crucial. While this requirement doesn't directly target pricing, it will secure accountability for the disclosure of nebulous college fees, which are not included in tuition and room and board. Forbes reports that many universities institute, quote, junk fees, such as undergraduate activity fees, technology surcharges, matriculation fees, graduation fees, and documentation fees, all of which are not included in tuition. Requiring disclosure helps students better understand their costs and holds universities accountable for excessive or predatory fees. The second part of this bill requires institutions of higher learning to return unexpended meal funds. Not refunding this money, this money is a predatory profit-driven business practice. Many students are required to purchase meal plans, oftentimes with restrictive offerings to them for dietary, religious, or personal reasons. Sure, schools can use this money elsewhere to improve student life. However, in any other academic domain, we do not accept that a school holds on to these funds. If you purchase a meal at an elementary, middle, or high school, you aren't charged for meals that you don't eat. This even goes for schools which themselves use point systems. So consider, for example, the Fairfield, Connecticut public school system. Parents are able to load meal funds into an account, and students are fed using that balance. Importantly, parents can request a refund from this balance at any time. In short, you don't pay for what you don't receive. And the difference in college is that the student can be required to load funds into an account. This is not just a matter of consistency, it's a matter of decisively improving the lives of Connecticut college students. I urge you to pass this bill. However, if you oppose it, I urge you to consider a compromise akin to New Jersey's proposed bill A2166, which allows students to donate unused meal funds to New Jersey food banks. As a resident of New Haven, which is designated as a food desert, I can see firsthand how this could empower students to make better use of their unexpended dollars while improving food security in New Haven and across Connecticut. Thank you so much for your time and consideration, and I urge you to pass HB 5170.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I don't see any questions, so you're, oh, okay, actually, hang on. We do have a question, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. So you've been required at Yale to get a food plan that's not an a la carte plan where you sort of purchase points. If you can just say a little bit more about the food plans that you're sort of required to purchase, that'd be great. Thanks.
Of course. So the way it works at Yale specifically is so it isn't you aren't required to load funds into a balance. The required meal plan, it's sort of you do meal swipes for dining halls. So theoretically, one thing that could happen is any unused meal swipes, the equivalent balance of that could be refunded to a student. But I do know that the University of Connecticut, some of the meal plans there incorporate meal points. So like, for example, I think one of them gives you like 50 points. I'm unsure if this one is required. And some of the other meal plans at Yale, there's a flex meal plan, which you're required to have a meal plan if you're on campus. So that one also gives you, I think it's $300 dining dollars per semester. So that's my experience at Yale, and at least what I know of that one UConn meal plan.
Thank you.
Thanks again for your testimony. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right, next up is Lee Ernest from the University of Connecticut.
Good afternoon to the Appropriation of Higher Education Committee for the State of Connecticut. My name is Lee Ernest, and I'm a student at the University of Connecticut studying fine arts, and I'm speaking towards the Senate 5 bill. I transferred to the University of Connecticut after reserving my spot at the Maine College of Art because I believed I would gain a sense of insight across a multitude of programs and be closer to home. For many, both are true. For some, being closer to home is the pull many fresh out of high school students consider as their first university experience, a decision rooted on the basis of security. For me, a culmination of countless afternoons spent budgeting and sitting down trying to calculate how much money I would need out of pocket to pay for college. That is, the amount I need out of pocket after taking my scholarships, grants, and benefits as an honor student into consideration. Some don't have as much support as I do. Currently, I'm majoring in fine arts, specifically illustration animation, and minoring in English, creative writing. It is in this very flexibility in interdisciplinary programs that keep me studying and finishing my undergraduate degree here at UConn and in Connecticut. I'm here to take advantage of as much as I can with the scholarships behind my back supporting my educational endeavors. From 2001 to 2017, Roberta B. Willis has served for Connecticut with the best interests of her constituents in mind. From improving policies revolving sexual assault and violence and phasing out hospital tax in 2014, to more recently supporting an act to provide tax relief for back-to-school supplies in 2015. Her efforts to support the community have not been undercited. If anything, these provide the foundation for how necessary and imperative supporting the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship funding is for merit need-based students residing within the state of Connecticut. Let me provide a scope of how I've been taking advantage of the facilities here at UConn. The UConn Art Program, as many other programs, have finite classes, which render it already difficult for students to enter the courses they need to fit into 8 semesters. 4 years of navigating an ever-changing academic climate. This campus has given me invaluable resources such as esteemed teachers, which have nourished and guided my growth into the artist I am today. UConn, specifically Professor Rita Capua, supported my confidence in attending a study abroad program to Florence, Italy for studio arts. That being said, to be able to attend that program, the funding did come from the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship, an experience I'll never forget. Professor Mark Zarolo is my mentor for the UConn Idea Grant, an esteemed source of funding for student-led projects unlike any other university, especially art-based universities. Never have I felt such support from an academic community and staff so ready to provide for their students' success. That being said, my ability to study and participate in such an avid university isn't unfounded. I implore that the Senate Bill 5 and subsequently the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship be reconsidered with increased funding and support as maintaining the integrity of education, one as profound as well-rounded as it is here in UConn, is currently under a state of national legislative duress. Without funding these academic institutions, I want to make it clear that the inability to study and subsequently the censorship and limited access of knowledge is a threat against education. Please remember that education is a means of communication and imbuing the essence of human culture and uniting interpersonal relationships and experiences. Consider the stories that have been told and the voices yet to be heard without the support. As I'm finishing my junior year at UConn and as a first-generation student, I, as well as my immigrant family, would be grateful for the continued and firm resolve to help students like me start and finish their education towards career security. I am more than happy to provide further input if necessary regarding the importance of maintaining the financial support of this program. Thank you for your consideration.
Lee, thank you very much. We can tell you're a writing major, so you did a great job and you represent UConn very well. So congratulations to you. Let's see if my colleagues have any questions. Yes, Sonia.
I just have a comment. Thank you so much for also highlighting the importance of fine arts and the liberal arts. As a faculty member at Quinnipiac and the liberal arts, we're forgetting about that and how important it is and the kinds of skills that you build in an interdisciplinary way to go out and to really be a contributing member in any field, in any discipline, right? Because you're building the skills, but in the fine arts and the liberal arts. So thank you so much for highlighting that and good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you, of course.
Okay, well, Lee, thank you very much again for your time and I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you
Thanks
so much for your
joining
time.
us. All right, so next is Michael Hemmings. Michael Hemmings is going to be joining us remotely. Michael, are you there? There we go.
Yes, I am.
All right, Michael, well, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Hemmings. I will be testifying on the Senate Bill 5. I'm a sophomore from Bridgeport, Connecticut, majoring in communications, film and theater at Eastern Connecticut State University. I am actively involved on campus in a few clubs, including Campus Activity Board, serving as a student orientation counselor and competing for the Eastern Track and Field team. Growing up, I always dreamed of going to college, not just for myself, but also to create a better future for my family. When I applied to my dream schools, the reality of the financial burdens started to sink in. Sadly, I worried if I'd even be able to make it through college. Coming from a low middle class household as one of 4 siblings, I didn't like the thought of putting additional financial pressure on my parents who were already supporting my sisters, who are younger than me. Starting college with a few friends from Bridgeport, we all shared the same concerns. How would we and our families handle the financial strain? Growing up with this financial background, we were no strangers to hard work. We not only worked to get ahead, but also prove that we belong and that we deserve to be here. Despite this, I began to doubt myself, question whether I truly belonged in college, whether I could even finish what I had started. The fear of financial strain caused me a great deal of anxiety. I felt as though I was going to fail the people that put faith in me and my abilities. But thanks to the incredible faculty and support systems at Eastern, people like Dean Dr. Wilmot, my head coach David Nicholson, Casey Kenzie, and Alyssa Duffy, my anxieties evaporated when realizing that there was a place that I was wanted and welcomed into. A sense of belonging warmed me with this realization. After this feeling, I was introduced to the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship, a scholarship that didn't just ease my financial worries, but also gave me the security and feeling that I wasn't alone in this journey. Thanks to the scholarship, I was able to focus on my academics and my drive to give back to my community. It has given me the opportunity to support others who, like me, don't always have the financial resources, but have the passion and determination to succeed. The Roberta B. Willis Scholarship has helped many students before me, and with your support, it can continue to do just as, if not more, impactful for future CSU generation of students. Coming from a low middle class family, what could have been an overwhelming financial burden was instead turned into an opportunity, one that I will always be grateful for. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope all of you continue to support CSU students like me.
Michael, thank you for your testimony. I don't see any questions, so I think you're free to go and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks again.
Have a good one.
All right, so next up is Aiden Mayette. who I believe is going to be joined by Representative Turco.
Let me just say that Representative Turco knows well, having served as the vice chair and a member of this committee for a long time, that we afford the opportunity for students oftentimes to go first. This sort of turns on the head a tradition here where legislators often bring constituents to the table to testify in advance of their spot on the lineup list. This might be the first time ever that an intern is bringing his legislator up to the table in order to testify ahead of where they are on the list. So good luck with that, Representative Turco. Good job to your intern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did call for permission from the Clerk of Higher Education earlier today, make sure that we were following protocol. But yes, I'll kick it off and I'll be passing it to Aiden Mayette to complete the testimony. But chairs, ranking members, distinguished members of the Higher Education Committee, this is very strange for me after 6 years of being on that side with you as a member of the committee for serving as vice chair to be on this side. But happy to be here with you all. Thank you for all the great work that you do, especially in raising House Bill 5170 this year and that concerning fees charged by institutions of higher education. First, let me say to all my friends in the room, our colleges and universities who are well represented here, I love you all very much. The work that you do, I went undergraduate here in Connecticut, graduate here in Connecticut, love private and public, love our institutions, love the people that work there. This is not picking on our individual college and universities. This is an industry problem. This is nationwide. That's why the Biden administration had a commission focused on college junk fees and making sure there was increased transparency, trying to make colleges more affordable, and trying to give students back those unused meal plan fees that they paid at the end of the year. The Biden administration, unfortunately, was unsuccessful, so I really appreciate this committee and perhaps our state taking a lead in trying to improve that transparency. This proposed legislation is not saying that colleges cannot charge a fee, but that they have to properly disclose them upfront at the time of enrollment. That way, a student really can compare between two different colleges and universities, or 3 or 4 that they're applying. What are the real cost of enrollment of going to that institution by having all of that cost right up front? And in regards to the meal plan, I'll say that this happened to me 25 years ago, and I hear it's still a problem today. I had, after my freshman year at a college here in Connecticut, again, not picking on anybody, this is happening across the country, $1,000 left over in unused student meal money that I had put into it. And let me say that $1,000 actually cost me a lot more because my college was primarily funded by student loans. At the end of the year, I asked the college if I could have that money back or have it carry over to the next year because I didn't spend it on any food purchases. I was told no. The best thing I can do was go into the cafeteria and purchase $1,000 worth of items. Load it in. I couldn't even see out of my car my ride home from Fairfield to New York, where I grew up. Loaded in cases of soda, bag of chips, microwave popcorn, ramen. My entire garage was filled with this stuff all summer. My parents couldn't get their car in. Students shouldn't have to do that, right? Students should get the money back or allow it to go to the next year so that they're not having to take student loans with high interest. So I will now turn it over to Aiden, who will tell you a little bit more about the research he's doing and a little bit about himself from Middlesex Community College.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So my name is Aiden. I am a sophomore at Middlesex Community College, and I have been doing a little bit of research regarding the fees and college meal plans, as he has mentioned. So I just want to share with you, and brace yourself because I have a litany of these fees that universities are charging. So we're going to start with the technology fee, automatic textbook charge fee, student activity fee, recreational center fee, graduation fee, cap and gown fee, matriculation fee, document transcript fee, infrastructure maintenance fee, student health and wellness fee, online course fee, general university fee, transit fee, reinstatement fee, and continuous registration fee. So that is quite a bit. And in total, I'm going to I'm, again, like he said, definitely not picking on any universities, but I'm going to use UConn as an example. All of those fees outside of tuition costs are roughly $1,700 for students. So that's a big chunk of money that a lot of students do not have. When it comes to meal plans, the Storrs campus of UConn is charging at minimum $3,096 per semester. The university does not allow use points or flex passes from those meal plans to be refunded, nor do they roll over to the next semester. Many students do not spend every dollar they put into a meal plan and are often left feeling as though they need to splurge on food at the end of the semester, potentially leading to excess food waste, or end the semester with unused passes and points, which they already paid for. I just want to thank you again for bringing this bill forward for a public hearing. I urge its passage out of this committee to provide improved transparency and help keep the cost of higher education affordable for college students who are an important part of the future success of Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. $1,000 worth of ramen, huh? That's your poor sodium levels. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, let me see if any of my colleagues have it. Yes, Representative Ackert.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative, for being here as always. It is strange having you on that side of this this committee. But thank you for your testimony and the input that you just provided. So you're not asking for them to remove fees. You're just saying, let us know what they are. So when I'm in business. So if I have something like I do an a la carte sort of invoice, right? So I'll put an invoice, or I'm gonna put it this way, a quote. And in my quote, I say, if you choose this, it's this fee. If you choose this, it's this fee. You choose this, it's this fee. So if someone decides to go, I did see some testimony that in some schools, a certain program costs more. So when you're applying for the school, you may not choose possibly the direction you're going to go. So if I'm applying for the school, I put my name in for the school, but if in that application, they're not saying that maybe in nursing, okay, if you choose nursing, there's a fee here because of the cost of nursing. So if they're just putting that out there, is it if they put it on a website, if someone decides that they're going to apply to these schools and you're going to look at fees, that it's really not, they don't come up and say, oh, these are going to cost you this and this. You got to go back and look and say, if you decide to choose this direction, here's the potential fees that you may have. Is that what we're looking to do?
Thank you for the question, Representative Ackert. We serve on the General Law Committee together, where we're doing a lot of work now to protect consumers regarding price transparency, junk fees, purchasing tickets to a show. You want to go to a Taylor Swift concert. We want people to know what the cost of that is right up front before they go through the entire process. And that's the intent of this bill too, is for that student to know the cost right up front before enrollment, being able to compare the different colleges, universities they may go to, and not later after they enroll, they get sent in the mail some additional fees that they're going to have to pay, or later on in their schooling. I see Representative and through the chairs that you're right that a student may not know what major they're going to enroll in when they are starting their college experience, and the fees for nursing may be higher than the arts or something like that. But that's still very easy for a college to disclose. Depending on what program you go into, there may be a matriculation fee that's going to vary. And here is what it looks like by major, right? Simple website that has all of that listed so that the student knows, hey, if I go to this college, I decide to be a nurse, they're going to charge me another $1,000. This other college is only going to charge me $250. Does that weigh into my decision going to that college or not? Maybe, maybe not, but I want the student to be able and their families to make that decision.
I appreciate that clarification through you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that clarification because that's what, if they're, the colleges are being as upfront as possible, I believe. It's just they don't know what you're deciding after you decide. Day one, I'm going to be doing this. And it costs the goods to be in that class cost more than maybe, like you said, a literature class or something like that. So I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Ackert. Representative Ronco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative and Aiden, for coming here and testifying. I think through the discussion, I just want to parse out. So we're really talking about, you're not asking fees to not be charged. as long as they're disclosing, you know what you're paying for. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, section 1A of the bill says that either you have to have all fees included in the tuition and room and board, or you disclose them to the student at the time of enrollment.
Okay.
Now, maybe a college or university may say, well, enrollment, a student goes to school potentially, 4 years or longer. Our fees may change through those 4 years. Can we have some flexibility? Maybe the bill gets amended where annually you have to disclose, the fees or something to give some flexibility. But right, not prohibiting as long as it's disclosed.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification because one of my concerns would have been if we were talking about prohibiting the fees, the costs are the costs. So I was concerned that we were just going to shove them into room and board tuition and without the transparency. So I do appreciate that point. I do remember to my UConn folks in the room, to close your ears, I'm sorry, but there was a list of extra fees and a lot of them were optional. At the beginning of the semester, I would go in and uncheck all the ones that were optional, so I didn't have to pay them. Sorry. So I think the transparency is good. So I'm glad I just wanted to clarify that. But then also with the meal plans we're talking about, are you looking for refunds from, so I can only talk, think back to my time at UConn. I don't know how the other colleges work, but, we would purchase a meal plan and then we would have the choice of putting actual dollars onto our account and using them. Are you asking for a refund from like separate money that you've put in or from buying a meal plan as a bulk purchase?
I think that's debatable. I mean, there's flex dollars that I think the Biden administration was really looking for, where you're putting several $100s into your student meal plan, and then you swipe and use those dollars at like the store on campus to purchase the ramen for your dorm room, right? That maybe those dollars unused should go back to you. I know some colleges and universities have an unlimited meal plan system. You pay a few thousand and then you can go in and out. That's a little harder to figure out how you reimburse with. For my undergraduate, it was you purchased at a certain tier, and that was a dollar amount loaded on a card. Let's say I was the platinum tier. That's what I thought I was going to be at, but I ended up ordering a lot of Chinese and pizza studying in the dorm room, so I didn't use it all. But that platinum tier of, $4,000, every time I went into the cafeteria, I loaded up my tray, I swiped, and then it deducted off that 4,000. So that's a little different than unlimited, right? That's something a little closer to the flex dollars, but I wasn't entitled to get any of that money back at the end of the year. So that's something probably have to figure out how to, write the language to cover that.
Yeah, it seems a little challenging because, if you're buying the unlimited plan where you get unlimited swipes into the dining hall, say, theoretically that cost to the university, they're preparing that food whether you swipe it or not. So it would be tough, I think, to figure out how to reimburse something like that versus you buy your meal plan and then you add $1,000 to your plan for these flex dollars or whatever. Maybe that makes a little more sense to be able to refund if not use. So I think it would take a little bit of research or figuring out how the systems work to figure it out. But I appreciate the clarification, and I think that's all I have. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Guy Wilcox.
This is a question for Aiden. Based on your research, did you notice that the fees, when you're doing a comparative analysis, are they just comparable across the board? I don't know if you looked in other states, but maybe throughout Connecticut, are the fees generally the same that get kind of packaged together?
Thank you for your question. So I really focused on Sacred Heart University, University of Connecticut, and some of these state universities. It seems as though a lot of those fees are pretty, across the board. A lot of those colleges have the same kind of ideas as to what they'll be charging students in addition to tuition. But I want to make it clear that the list of fees that I mentioned is from the UConn website. So this was really, you know, not picking on UConn in particular, but I'm using it as an example because that's probably the most well-renowned school in the state of Connecticut that many people can point to and get information from. They were a really good example of those fees that colleges do charge students in the state.
Representative Haddad.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for your testimony. You mentioned a couple times now that you found some of this information on websites, but Representative Turco said that perhaps disclosing this information on a website is how a university might comply with the law. So what do you think is not on websites that might have to be added in order to provide greater transparency? Or are you also asking for additional provision that might direct students to the website? I'm trying to figure out, like, what about, I mean, I'm looking ahead at UConn's testimony. UConn says it's on the website. So where are we deficient now?
I will just say that when I looked at University of Connecticut's website, I did see a good listing of the different fees and the potential amount, what we're opting in and what the student can opt out of. So I thought that was very transparent. I don't know though, because I did not go to the University of Connecticut, how it is disclosed to the students and their families at the time of enrollment. You know, is it listed on the website and the students have to go and find that information? Or is it, you know, properly presented where, hey, here's the cost of tuition, here's room and board if you're taking advantage of that, and here is where you can find all the additional fees. So it would be good to maybe have a process to ensure that students and their families are provided that information, and then to make sure that all of our colleges and universities are following suit. You have anything you want to add, Abe?
I just want to add that in my research or my studying of what people have said, I've looked at many forums from student conversations. A lot of them just have discussed and have had complaints about not knowing about these fees until it's too late, until they're forced to pay them, until you know, that window has passed of opting out of them. So I think that what Representative Turco is talking about when it comes to being more transparent is making sure that students are aware of these fees in a proper manner prior to that window closing or being forced to pay them.
Thank you for your response. That'll be my number one question when UConn testifies or any other college testifies, just how do you disclose the fees and how is, you know, how might we enhance it? Because I do recognize that it can be incredibly frustrating to students and the parents to sort of suddenly feel like it's a surprise that there are these additional fees that they have to pay. And we want to make sure that they have a good experience and that universities and colleges are being transparent. So I wanted to thank you, Representative Turco, and others who sort of, you know, proposed this idea. It's a good conversation, I think, for our committee to have. I really appreciate it. The last question, I guess I would just ask, are you making better food choices now, Representative Turco? I just want to make sure you're okay.
I'm not eating ramen, but I thought I gained a lot of weight in college. But when you become a rep, there's a whole new weight gaining. So I'm not sure if you know. Thank you for the question, though.
Thank you, Representative Turco.
Thank you both very much. I don't see any other questions. Have a good rest of your day. Okay, Nathan First up next with the University of Connecticut.
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan First. I'm the Vice President for Student Life and Enrollment, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today on behalf of the university in support of Senate Bill 5. Each year, UConn students benefit from the Roberta Willis Scholarship. In fiscal year 24, over 4,000 UConn students received approximately $15 million in funds in aid that made a difference for students who relied on this scholarship to continue their education and work toward a successful future. While this funding is essential, it is not nearly enough. Among the 17,000 plus Connecticut residents that are enrolled in UConn in FY25, their total financial need amounted to well over $300 million, which is a staggering figure. Even when factoring in Roberta Willis, UConn's institutional aid, which is substantial, federal Pell Grants, private scholarships, foundation awards, gift aid, there was only enough to cover half of that financial need. To fill this gap, students and their families turn to loans, personal savings, work study, and make other financial sacrifices that can have long-term consequences. Despite these challenges, UConn students continue to excel. They graduate with lower average debt levels than both the national and the state averages, and they maintain remarkably low default rates. More importantly, they secure high-paying jobs, many of them right here in Connecticut, as you know, helping to fuel our state's economy. But the concern of the unmet financial need persists, and we can't ignore it. Unfortunately, Connecticut lags behind other states in financial aid investment. A recent College Board study ranked Connecticut 39th in the country in per student financial aid funding. The only states ranking lower had significantly lower costs of living and costs of attendance, meaning that when you adjust for costs, Connecticut may be at or near the bottom of all states in investment in financial aid. This is a troubling reality for the students and families trying to make higher education attainable. We also recognize the importance of transparency and early notification in financial aid decisions. Families need clarity and predictability when planning for college. However, I urge the committee not to let procedural and timing concerns take precedence over the funding itself. If the process becomes a zero-sum game where some students benefit while others lose out, which is often the case today, we have failed in our goal to expand upon access to higher education. For that reason, I strongly support your efforts to address this issue head-on and to increase overall support and transparency for the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program without sacrificing funding from other vital sources. That point is critical. Connecticut's students, families, and economy depend on it. Thank you for your time and a commitment to this important issue, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thanks, Nathan. I do have one. You are in a very competitive environment, and you said, zero sum. In many respects, it is zero sum when it comes to you seating a class, right? And looking to get the best and brightest from not only Connecticut, but around the world. And I wonder if you feel like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you have at least one arm tied behind your back when it comes to this endeavor, because I know the university and the foundation have done great things recently in terms of increasing fundraising, but I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that UConn, I think, is the only top 25 public university with an endowment less than $1 billion. Probably about accurate.
Maybe close.
You're close, yeah. So anyways, but that means that you have less money for financial aid than many of your competitors, if not pretty much all of your competitors. And then in addition, we as a state fall short in terms of our public scholarship as well. So I look at it as just kind of 1-2 punch to UConn and your ability to make the university as affordable as possible to Connecticut residents. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's fair. And I think you're going to hear from Dr. Hines later from the Hartford Promise Program. And I made this point in another conversation that we were having. The transparency that we lend students at the front end of the process is absolutely critical. And in partnerships that we have, like the Hartford Promise and the University of Connecticut, we lend some additional transparency to students, and we reap the benefits of that as an institution, and the students reap the benefits and the transparency and their ability to make a wise college choice, an affordable choice. We see more and more students take advantage of those opportunities in those instances to join us at the University of Connecticut, and I would have to think that that would be the case across higher education in the state of Connecticut if we made all the right choices here.
Thank you. Representative Acker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Nathan, as always, good to see you. So you said that we ranked 39th in the country. I did see a report that we ranked 44th in funding per. Where does that information come from?
That was a College Board study, and it was just me simply looking at the investment per student in scholarships from the state aid program.
Okay, yeah, I did see another testimony in our system that says that we do about 400 per student when the national average is like 1180 per student. So, and which put us at about 44th. So I thank you for that information. Always appreciate and good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Good to see you. Okay. Up next is Scott Gall with OPM, Data Director. And then Representative Cabros DeGraw is on deck.
I believe, if permission is given, we're trying to do a twofer with the two OPM testimonies, so you can get rid of us sooner in the process. All right, so I'll begin. Thank you to the chairs, vice chairs, ranking members, other members of the committee. My name is Scott Gall. I'm Chief Data Officer for State of Connecticut at the Office of Policy and Management. And I'm here to testify in support of Senate Bill 1250, an act implementing the governor's budget recommendations for higher education. So it's part of the governor's legislative proposals. And I wanted to cover some of the language that's in Section 5, which relates to the ability to get data and reporting with the hopes that that's a benefit to the members of this committee, other stakeholders interested in the success of higher education in Connecticut. So Section 5 covers some changes for P20WIN, which is preschool through 20 workforce information network. It's our state way to match and link data across 15 different agencies, which you would need to do in order to understand, measure outcomes, evaluate the success of different programs. And so Roberta Willis, which we just heard about, is a good example to understand whether people who've received the scholarship stay in Connecticut, find work in Connecticut. We need to link data across different agencies. Government, where I work, keeps that data in silos. And so you need a safe and secure way to link that together. When Undersecretary Karpowicz talks in a second, he'll talk about prison education programs. That's where you're, again, have two different systems, correction system, education system, who don't naturally share data with one another. And so we want a system for the state where we can do that. And so we're looking for some changes to the statutory language for P20WIN to provide a little better administration for the system and increase the reporting that you're able to get. So one of the comments I want to start with, just the focus on privacy and security. I know some of the subsequent testimony will cover questions about that. We work very hard to make sure that we are keeping all of the data that all of the 15 agencies that participate in P20WIN safe and secure. I'm a resident of Connecticut. I've got kids in the school system. I want to make sure I'm in your district, Representative Sweet. I want to make sure that that we keep that data safe and secure. So we're subject at OPM, we administer and manage the system. We're subject to education law, but because of the 15 agencies, we're also subject to making sure that we meet the requirements for health law through HIPAA, 42 CFR Part 2, which covers substance use records, child welfare laws, child protective services, homelessness, public benefits programs, criminal justice. We have to keep track of, manage compliance with all of those laws and regulations, and we do. And in particular, for education records, we have a very close relationship. We're reliant to some extent on funding from the Federal Department of Education. They regularly monitor and review our work. They look at our written agreements. They look at the governance framework. They look at all the policies and procedures and look at that every year, basically. And we've gone through with, I think, glowing reviews from that process so far. So we're compliant with all those federal state laws and regulations. And I just want to provide sort of assurance of that for the members of the committee here. The legislation puts in place really three changes, sections A through E of sections. I said section 5 earlier. It's section 3. Daniel, section 5. Sections, subsections A through E or whatever they are of section 3 change some things for the statutory basis for P20WIN. This was passed in 2017, I believe, originally. So we're just making some proposals to modify that language in keeping with national best practices. And in particular, we're calling out the responsibility that we OPM have as kind of the administering agency for that. So you know who to hold accountable for the system. It's a way that we've seen a lot of other states go, that there's a central entity responsible for coordination, managing that, and making sure that we can maintain and sustain capacity for the system. And then sections F and G under section 3 provide additional regular reporting that we'll get both from the workforce development boards and the public institutions of higher education to ensure that there's kind of consistency, regular reporting from those over time, so that not least of which the members of this committee, but other stakeholders, again, interested in the success of higher education, can get that data. You've got consistent metrics. You can see if the investments that you're making are paying off, doing what you intended them to do. And so that's what we're here to testify in support of. And if time permitting, I believe Daniel is going to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Thank you, Scott. Co-chairs, ranking members.
and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to piggyback here and share a little bit more testimony with you all about Section 5. As Scott mentioned in particular, I'm Daniel Karpowitz. I'm your relatively new Undersecretary for Criminal Justice Policy at the Office of Policy and Management. We support, as Scott indicated, this bill, which would require each public institution of higher education to report information to our division at OPM, Criminal Justice Policy and Planning Division, to help enable the division to enhance post-secondary and higher educational opportunities for individuals in and coming home from correctional facilities. Section 5 in particular, Section 5 in particular will establish a collaboration between OPM, the University of Connecticut Regents, and Connecticut State higher education systems to help facilitate such programming for justice-impacted people and to help the state and its public institutions maximize the utilization of Pell Restoration, which was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Trump in 2020. Obstacles facing improved utilization include the existence of accounts receivable holds, which are when a student has an outstanding balance owed to the institution, which results in their transcripts being withheld, and registration blocks. Okay. The goal of improving these systems includes successful reentry, made up in part of post-secondary and higher educational attainment, and the many benefits these bring, from reduced recidivism to increased job market attachment and economic independence. We do not yet have accurate estimates on the scale and impact of obstacles such as accounts receivable holds and registration blocks on people in the custody of the Department of Corrections or under court supervision. But our inquiries and the experience in both Connecticut and other states indicates that it is quite substantial. Both federal policy and policy in other states such as Minnesota have been changing the approach to such small but impactful economic obstacles to higher educational attainment, and the collaborations created by Section 5 would contribute to those efforts. I thank the committee for the opportunity to present with you today.
Thank you. Any questions? You do? Okay, Representative Acker.
Yeah, I'll be brief, I hope. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your testimony. So I'm looking at Section 3G in this, and you're talking about the institutions of higher education and reporting, and I get it. I was a trustee for the community colleges, and we would get beat up because these students would start at a community college and then transfer to a four-year institution and say you didn't get a completion. Yeah, but so is this supposed to also track them? Let's say they go to here, if they end up getting a degree someplace, even a associate degree, I'd rather be that we say, well, they started out here, even though they didn't finish here, they were successful in their post-secondary education, maybe not in Connecticut. But so I think that should be part of this reporting, by the way. Is that something that could be if we're going to report?
Yeah, let me cover. So in two ways, yes. So fundamentally, this type of system, longitudinal integrated data system, whatever you want to call it, is built to link across the silos that government puts in place. And so you have, two-year college and four-year college, they don't necessarily share data. So this is a way to enable that to be done safely and securely. So the scenario you're talking about is one that this effort is designed to address. The second piece specific to the language in 3G, what's here is really that we will figure out the format, the scope of that reporting. If the legislation were to pass, then we'll go back and do that and consult with the stakeholders in question and figure out, oh, this is something that we want to understand. We want to understand the transition from two-year into four-year college. We want to understand the linkage between the correctional system and higher education. And so that process of consultation, figuring out what are the questions that people have, do we have the data to answer those questions? That would go into what's in there about establishing the standards, the format, what are the types of data elements, how often are they reported? Do you need quarterly? Do you need annual? That's the kind of thing that would go into developing those standards so that the standards answer the questions that you again, among many other stakeholders have. And so that type of question would be, to me, exactly the kind of thing that should go into developing the standards that would come out of that section. And I will say, because you'll hear testimony later about the workforce development system, it's the same issue. So you have workforce development job training programs where people move from program A to program B, or they're co-enrolled in 2 programs at the same time. We don't know that because government doesn't design the data collection in that way. And so similarly, there'll be an opportunity to figure out, okay, what are the questions? Are we measuring the right outcomes? I know there's a lot of concern from higher education that their outcomes are not measured faithfully. This is a way in which to make sure that we're collecting the right data to measure outcomes in the way that they understand and are supportive of.
That's great. I would love it if there was one spot that we can actually go get, and our Office of Legislative Research could go get, because I don't know sure at which time do I need to call the Department of Labor? Do I need to call Office of Higher Education? Do I need to reach out to OWS? So it'd be great that if we're getting rid of the silos, I'm not sure why legislation needs to be there to get rid of silos, but if that's what we got to do, I'm all for it. So thank you for your testimony. Thank you for raising this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, Representative Haddad.
Thank you. Just I'm more of a comment than a question about Section 5, which is, I appreciate the effort here. We're looking, incarcerated individuals. We know that if we invest in them and upskilling them while they're incarcerated, that will pay dividends for us and for them when they're released. And so I appreciate an effort to identify an obstacle that we can address and to help them sort of move along in that process. And just a general question, I guess, is that part of this work has been spurred by the fact that the federal government now makes Pell Grants available to folks who are incarcerated. What to this point is our experience with having prisoners actually successfully secure that resource, and are those Pell Grants covering fully the cost of providing the educational opportunities that are provided to them while they're incarcerated?
Thank you, Chair Dodd. Thank you for your, overarching sort of appreciation strategically of what's at issue in Pell utilization. In transition to answering your question, I want to echo the exchange between Representative Ackert and Scott, our state chief data officer. When we look at the impacts of what goes on in our prison facilities and job market attachment and economic independence post-release, I can't give you any information. I can't give you that visibility. If we ask which of our vocational programs correlate with job attachment and getting a job, I can't tell you. There are 100 folks formerly incarcerated, now full-time employees at Yale Hospital in New Haven. How much taxes are they paying every month? I can't tell you. That's very frustrating. The governor of Indiana, in the state of address, includes every year a paragraph about taxes paid by people who have gotten back on their feet and are contributing as citizens to the community and their taxes. I can't give you that yet. I think you have a right to know that. We all have a right to know that. This is in the spirit of that work. And so we are optimistic that we are not drawing down enough Pell money, which is money we pay in as Connecticut folks to Washington. We're not getting it back. And this is really a great opportunity to encourage and leverage job market attachment in that space. It's a win-win. We do have significant, as some members of the committee will know, with both pre-Pell restoration and post-Pell restoration colleges, our community colleges, some of our private institutions of higher education operating in partnership with the DOC inside our facilities. That has been successful. The FAFSA Reform Act and changes made to the higher education have somewhat facilitated that process of becoming Pell eligible, but there is a lot of work to do. My division owes to this committee a report mandating us to fully assess that landscape, which will be before you shortly. Prosecutorial data slowed us down a little bit. That's beyond the scope of our testimony today. But we are doing a full assessment of what the delta is between folks who are ready, willing, and able to utilize Pell as part of their trajectory into successful reentry and the job market and other kinds of benefits to households that come from that. And that report will tell you what we know about some of those outcomes, what we don't know and the way we need to adjust some of these systems because we build silos to get in our own way in order to know what next needs to be done. And so we look forward to sharing that with this committee shortly. And I think we have a lot of upside here.
Thank you for that question. My second question, probably more for Mr. Gall. When I look at section 1 of 1250, I get PTSD. In 2011, I think is when some of this language was first put into the statutes, and currently it reads that the constituent units of the system of higher education shall use best efforts to work with OPM, DAS, and the comptroller. And it's like I don't often see statutes that are written like that. We'll try. It basically says we'll try to do this. And so you're changing that to a shall, an absolute mandate. What I remember from 2011 was getting in the way of this level of communication was a big, huge fiscal note. And when I look at some of the testimony to come, I see that, again, the institutions say that to fully utilize core will cost tens of millions of dollars. And so I'm curious to know what your perspective is on that. What are we aiming for here? Like they're currently using software packages that are designed for institutions of higher education or for hospitals that seem to be working for them. But there's, and I don't know if we're asking them to use that system plus core, or if we're going to upgrade core so that they can use just core, or if we just want the data to come out of their system and translate into core. And so where's the sweet spot here?
I'm going to punt part of this to colleagues at OPM, and I think I almost was going to agree with the last statement, send the data in some other format into core, but I believe, and I think you can see this in section C, I believe there's maybe a misunderstanding in some of the subsequent testimony. I don't believe the proposal is to have anybody use core, which is the state's system that we use for HR and financial transactions. It's to, as it's stated in section C, provide data for inclusion in any program concerning statewide fiscal transparency and databases maintained by Office of the Comptroller. That's the Open Connecticut program, which I can speak to a little bit because we work closely with the Comptroller's office on that for the state's open data efforts that we also administer through OPM, my office. So that for the Open Connecticut, the transparency platform through the Comptroller's office, it matters a little how the data gets there, but it doesn't require agencies to use core to do it. And I believe there's some clarification in some of the other testimony that it's not a requirement. And again, I will defer partly in case I'm crossing wires with anybody else that I work for. But my understanding is they're not proposing to use core, which would involve substantial cost and transition. It's really to get data in a format that it can be used for the Open Connecticut platform, which is a much lighter lift. And again, I can speak to it because we work with the Comptroller's office on that. It just needs to be in the same format. It's not a huge transition for that.
Okay, I mean, thank you, and I appreciate the response. I mean, you're not the only one to go over this tripwire. We had a bill earlier this year. It said the same thing, and we tripped over the same tripwire. So, I just want to point out that beginning in line 13 of the bill, it basically says, retaining it to a shall fully utilize the core system to provide for human resources and payroll reporting, which seems to be separate from other kinds of expenditures which are handled in section C. And when I look at the governor's testimony, he says the bill ensures that all public higher education institutions fully utilize the core CT system for payroll and HR reporting. So I mean, I think that maybe a solution to this would be essentially to leave the current statute alone, even if it just says try, and concentrate on the other kinds of expenditures that are being made at the systems that currently aren't being translated into. My understanding is you can go to the transparency.gov website and look up, you know, the payroll information of people in the higher education constituents. So there's some transfer of data that's already happening. I don't know why that is inadequate at this point.
I believe in, and again, you know, I don't want to cross the tripwire more than I need to. But in this case, it's really the financial transactions that go through, which executive branch agencies go through core. That I don't believe you can get that through Open Kinetic. You can get the payroll, but not the, you know, the contracts, the checks that get cut, et cetera. And I believe that was one of the recommendations. And I think the intent is providing transparency on that. The means to get there is an excellent question.
Right. And so I guess, I mean, I would just ask you to, you know, consider leaving the language as it currently exists in lines 10 through 17 around payroll and human resources. I'm curious to know if we just left that unamended, but added lines 18 to 24, if that might add to transparency of expenditures, but not, you know, specifically require that the institutions use the core CT system for human resources and payroll. I might hear from them that they think that that still costs, you know, tons of money, but I you know, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, like, how can we do this and afford to do it at the same time? But thank you very much for your testimony. If you could maybe look at that section again and figure out what it is that we want to do and how get together with the institutions to figure out how we can do that. I think transparency is important, and we should try to make that as transparent as possible, which I think is the intent and the spirit of the section. I just want to figure out how to do that in a way that doesn't cost, you know, $50 or $60 million. Right. All right. Thank you.
Part of my job description, so I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Okay, Representative Kazros DeGraw, you are next. Then we're going to go to our non-public part. So President Rona Free with the University of St. Joseph's, and then we will have the Chancellor of our state system, CSCU, Chancellor Terrence Chang, after that. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman Slapp, Chairman Haddad, Rankings Senator Martin, and Representative Bronco, and esteemed colleagues. Lovely to see you on this cold afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of HB 6074, an act concerning the Student Loan Reimbursement Program. As a co-author of SLRP, I am grateful to share that this transformative initiative is already headed towards success for Connecticut residents burdened by student loan debt. The thousands of inquiries, the over 1,500 applications the program has already seen, and the checks that will soon be sent out are all a testament for the need of this program to ease the financial strain of this debt on our working residents and to provide them the ability to participate more fully in Connecticut's economy. Since the program began on January 1st of this year, 192 pending eligible applicants who have demonstrated completion of the 50 volunteer hours of service and their other required documents will soon receive their award, the average of which is $2,800. As you may recall, the maximum they can receive is $5,000 a year for up to 4 years, for a total of up to $20,000 in student loan reimbursement. 68 of these recipients earn between $0 and $50,000 in Connecticut adjusted gross income, that's AGI. Their average AGI is $26,459. 85 recipients earn between $50,001 and $100,000 with an average AGI of $71,827. And 39 recipients earn between $100,001 and $175,000. Those are our couples with an average AGI of $131,075. Student loan debt affects multiple demographic brackets, as you can see, and we're anxious to see the economic impact that the overall $6 million dedicated to this program will achieve. While the governor's proposed budget eliminates funding for this initiative, it's my fervent hope that the legislature sees fit to maintain and expand the ability of the program to continue and to continue successfully. The bill tweaks the program in a few necessary ways. It expands the ability to complete the 50 hours of community service at multiple nonprofit or approved community organizations. We had a little challenge where the computer programming, if you were doing your hours, 10 hours here, 20 hours there, it was not allowing for that. And we know people like to support multiple organizations. And as you may have noticed, while the program already has a hardship waiver, we need this bill to consider applicants in the current calendar year who may have completed hours in the previous year, and to further understand that there are limited circumstances in which someone may not be able to complete the 50 hours. So far, there have only been 3 hardship waivers that have been necessary out of all the people who have been pre-approved. We do have one situation, and I hope you'll hear testimony, if someone going through cancer, obviously they need a hardship waiver. We just want to make sure that we expand it just enough that people are able to receive that. Connecticut residents continue to carry some of the highest student loan debt in the nation, and though some may have received relief at the federal level, that reimbursement is in jeopardy, and we can push back against that for the residents who didn't qualify or may ultimately need relief at the state level. I urge you to support HB 6074 and assist us in strengthening the student loan reimbursement program. We can further commit to the success of our residents and the state by providing relief to people who want to start families, buy a home or car, and make a life here in our wonderful state. I appreciate your time and happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony and for sticking around. Any questions for the representative? No? I don't see any.
Okay.
So, all
Thank you
right.
so much. It was bipartisan. Hope it is again. Take care.
Just had to sneak that in there. Huh? Yeah. All right. Next up is the president of St. Joseph, President Rona Free.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm Rona Freed, president of the University of St. Joseph, and I have with me Stacy Downing, the director of Student Financial Services, in case there are any technical questions about financial aid that I can't answer. So on behalf of the university and our students, I'm submitting testimony in favor of Senate Bill 5 that seeks to require first need-based grants under the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program to be equal to $4,500 for every eligible student. And two, that the Office of Higher Education disperse grants under the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program not later than the academic semester preceding the academic semester in which such grants are to be awarded. We appreciate the legislature's continued support of Roberta Willis scholarships. However, the general fund appropriation for the program has not seen an increase in more than 10 years, leading to significant unmet need among eligible students. In FY23, about 60% of students who met the eligibility criteria could not be awarded a scholarship. This bill seeks to remedy that problem by ensuring that every student who meets the criteria for a need-based scholarship gets that award amount. An important component of the financial support that USJ students receive, Roberta Willis scholarships, supplement aid from the federal government and from the university itself. Almost all of USJ's undergraduates receive aid from our own scholarship funds, with 37% of them being eligible for federal Pell Grants based on their family incomes. In the current academic year at USJ, 140 Connecticut resident students receive a Roberta Willis grant, and those funds are critical to their ability to complete their degree programs. To ensure that those specific students are able to attend USJ, the university also awarded them an additional $3.4 million in institutional aid, and in total awarded more than $19 million in grant aid to our undergraduates. Without the Roberta Willis Scholarship, many of those 140 student recipients would not have been able to attend USJ, the institution that they chose because it best matched their family resources and their educational and career plans. Based on the Office of Higher Education's formula, USJ's allocation of need-based Roberta Willis funds will fall to $219,000 in FY26 compared to $303,000 in FY23. As a result, next year, we may not even have enough funding to continue the awards to some of the 140 students who are currently receiving one. It's also important to note that if all applicants eligible for a Roberta Willis grant knew they would receive one, as this bill proposes, they would be more likely to stay in state for college. Nearly 40% of Connecticut's high school graduates leave the state to attend college, which is twice the national average. Expanding this program will help to keep USJ students and all Connecticut students here for college, making them more likely to join the state workforce once they earn their degrees. The state will be well served by increasing Roberta Willis scholarships. Connecticut now ranks last in our region in our investment in need-based financial aid as a percentage of our overall higher education spending at just 3%. This is leading to significant unmet need and contributes to student decisions to enroll at out-of-state colleges and universities. In summary, I urge the committee to support this bill to increase funding to the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program and ensure Connecticut students receive the scholarships they need to earn their degrees and enter the workforce in their home state. Thank you for your continued support of the program.
Thank you, President Friend. Any questions? Yes, Representative Acker.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony and your support of the legislation. Question, you said that 40% of Connecticut high school students leave to go to a different out-of-state college?
Yes.
Okay, where can I find that information?
There.
That's a harsh number. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the most recent place I found it. I checked that there. I mean, there are a number of places where you can find it online.
Yep. I'll do some
I could certainly, we
research
can get
on-
you the,
yeah.
a specific website where you can find it.
Yeah, that's key because if we can keep them here and going to our colleges, as you mentioned, typically more than 70% of the students that graduate from a Connecticut college stay and work here. So when 40% are leaving, we're not grasping enough to stay here. So I thank you for your testimony and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Representative. I have some of that information as well. I could probably get for you. We had a news conference about this bill, and I had the same number as President Free. It was 61% stay, so 40% leave. Of these are Connecticut high school students who go off to college, and the national average is 76% stay. So we're significantly below the national average. Yeah. For any of my colleagues who may have questions or concerns about public dollars going to private schools, I think that it's intended as sort of a softball here, but what would your response be to that?
That the independent colleges are receiving aid from state dollars through the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program. So for the University of St. Joseph, the average state dollars per student enrollment each year is between $400 and $450. That compares to thousands of dollars per enrolled student at the publics. So publics are wonderful institutions. That we have a wonderful flagship, wonderful four-year institutions where I worked for 30 years. So I'm a great supporter of those. But in terms of state investment, the independent colleges are a very good investment in terms of return on investment for degrees produced for those dollars.
Thank you, Representative Dad.
Yeah, just a little bit more nuts and bolts. What is the current sort of situation with the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program? I understand that the Office of Higher Education has given some information to colleges about what the allocations will be for next year. I think they're trying to sort of add the certainty that we've been trying to do, but what have they told you so far? And and how comfortable do you feel allocating that dollar amount, given whatever caveats that might come with their promises?
I know OHE has tried to be very responsive on this, but I'll turn to my colleague who knows all the details and timing.
Thank you very much. So we've been notified of a general funding for next year, but based on set level funding. And so while this is helpful information to know that the information will remain steady, it's remained steady for the past 10 years. And so this is almost not new information for us. So it does allow us to know that money is coming and we'll be able to award it, but we're not sure if that is an exact dollar amount, if it will go up or down, and allowing us to provide that information to students where we might have to take it away if the numbers go down. They haven't quite said a specific enough amount for us to be able to award it to students.
And you might be aware that there's another piece of legislation around that we're considering around scholarship displacement. And so I guess, I'm trying to figure out, we're sort of coming at you in both directions. We're saying, make a financial aid award. It may or may not come in the form of a Willis scholarship through funding provided by the state. but you can't, if you made a promise, you couldn't displace that with additional resources, I guess, if I were to look at the letter of the law that we're considering. Or likewise, if you didn't make, if you didn't risk over promising for Willis, which is, I guess, what could happen. Say we come in, you decide you're going to count on what your last year's allocation, but it gets trimmed 10%. You would, I guess you would have to make up the difference like on your own, I guess and that's where the uncertainty comes from, right? So the SB 5 would guarantee or try to guarantee that we would provide you with better information earlier on so you could guarantee. Is the semester before a good enough deadline? It seems to me like when do you make your financial aid awards? I would guess that you would need a real number closer to January or February for you to make your awards. When do you make your awards?
Yeah, so we start as early as November, depending on when the FAFSA is open. So obviously the past few years, the federal FAFSA form has been delayed due to changes. But we were able to send out our first aid offer this year before the holidays, the winter holidays. And so sometime as early as that or January is a much better time frame for the whole year's allocation. Being able to just know semester by semester wouldn't be sufficient, but knowing very early on so that students are making decisions as early as December the year before.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any questions. Oh, never mind. Representative Bronco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that bit of information, I'm seeing here where the bill is calling for the funds to be appropriated not later than May 1st. So are we saying that's too late?
The intent is always to be as early as possible. May 1st is still earlier than we've been notified in the past, which is typically in August, even after fall bills have already been generated and sent out. Students make decisions historically around May 1st. That's the kind of national college deadline. Our institution is rolling admissions, but we still utilize that as a priority deadline. And so most of our students will make determinations about where they're going to go to college by May 1st. So being able to let students know that they have the funding to provide choice as to where they want to go and hopefully remain in Connecticut is really the intent of the timing as well as the funding amounts.
Which makes a lot of sense. And I'm new to the committee, so I'm still trying to grasp it all a little bit, but it seems like one of the biggest problems we've talked about is the timing of Roberta Willis. And I believe the intent with this bill is to fix that, but it sounds like maybe we're not fixing it enough. So maybe we have to explore that more and discuss it, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If you're making a decision for college, you want to know your aid package, and it's kind of, when you don't know, you can't let the student know. When the student doesn't know, it's hard for them to make a complete decision, have the full picture. So I guess we can discuss that more in committee, but so I just wanted to clarify that even the May 1st that we're attempting to fix it is really not going to really fix it. So we need to explore maybe even an earlier date for that appropriation. Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Yeah, actually, just following up real quickly on Representative Bronco's question, I think it's a good one, or his observation. Is there a difference between when the money is actually sent to you so that's one piece of it, versus when you are told how much it's going to be, right? So then you can at least rely on that to make awards.
100%, Senator. We are notified of the funding dollars well before the funding money is actually sent to us, which is typically closer to the start of the semester in the fall in September. So actually receiving the dollars is always helpful, but it is much better for us to be aware of the dollar amount so we can at least appropriate it and allocate it to the individual student so the students know how much they are receiving individually.
So ideally, you would receive notification of the amounts January, I think, right, is when you said, and then the actual appropriation or the your institution getting the money could be actually closer to the start of the fall semester. Do I understand that right?
Correct, because that's
Okay.
when we actually process the money onto the student accounts.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thank you. Good. Okay. Great. Thanks again for your patience. Appreciate it.
Thank
And your testimony and support. Thank you. Chancellor Tsang, you and your team are up. As many people as you want to bring, as many chairs as we have. Good afternoon. The floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, Senator Martin, Representative Bronco, and members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on a number of bills on behalf of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities. We have submitted written testimony on a variety of bills, but I'm joined today by our General Counsel, Karen Buffkin. I just want to take a moment to recognize that the students that testified last night, our faculty and staff who also testified last night, did a great job in terms of demonstrating the need of our higher education institutions. And I think that's why it's salient in this testimony now. We are in favor of Senate Bill 5, a proposal that would expand funding for the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship Program. The scholarship program is a vital resource for CSCU students. Enhancing financial aid predictability is critical, as we just heard from our colleagues just before us. And we recognize the value of establishing fixed grant awards to help students better plan for their education, as standardized awards could simplify financial planning and ensure more transparency. CSCU deeply values the state's investment in need-based aid, as many of our students rely on financial assistance to access and complete their educations. Given the high percentage of Pell eligible and low-income students at our institutions, it's important to assess how changes to this program interact with other aid sources. But as we presented yesterday to the Appropriations Committee, 5,700 students, over 5,700 of our students at CSCU received the Roberta Willis Award as of right now. That's a lot of students. That's 11% of our students that receive financial aid assistance in some way, shape, or form. 11% are the Roberta Willis Award. So it's a significant number for us. Financial aid is key to enrollment and retention. And while predictability is important, we must ensure the program continues to meet the needs of the most financially vulnerable students. Ensuring Connecticut students have the resources to pursue higher education is a shared priority, and we appreciate your thoughtful consideration and look forward to working together on this proposal. So we also have some comments on SB 1250 as well, but maybe we'll just pause here if there are any questions about our thoughts on SB 5.
Sure, that's fine. I will ask you, do you have it? No. We'll ask you about your testimony in Senate Bill 5 and just how that relates to, I mean, it's been well documented enrollment challenges. I know you just put out some a news release about celebrating that you had some good news in terms of enrollment. But can you talk about how you think that, you know, the relationship between if 5 were to pass and be fully funded and how that would impact your enrollment? And I guess the other piece of that is enrollment and overall fiscal health.
So we believe that any investment that the state makes in supporting students to access higher education is a direct investment in the people that has a positive impact on our enrollment and obviously on our fiscal bottom line. And I think this is demonstrated by the PACT program, which has been incredibly successful for us. And we're incredibly grateful to the legislature for creating this program. And as it has expanded, it has only proven to be more and more successful. We see programs in New York and Massachusetts and Pennsylvania that are called different names, but are essentially need-based state-funded programs. And they too are tapped to the maximum, and they are direct investments in the people that have immediate impact on enrollment and on our financial bottom line. So we really do view this as being a direct correlation to potential, even further potential increases in our enrollment and strengthening of the system.
Is it unfair to ask if you've run the numbers on what full funding of Willis could do? I mean, maybe it's just there's so many unknowns that, you know, maybe that's not a realistic thing for you all to be able to compute, but I'm wondering if you've looked at that.
We'd be happy to work with you and the committee, Senator, on doing some modeling and projections. It's hard to say, but I think if we were given a few scenarios, we would definitely be happy to work on that.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, if you want to continue on with your
Yes,
testimony
please.
on the other
I'll
bills. that'd be
hand it
great.
over to Karen Buffkin, our general counsel.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm here to testify on Senate Bill 1250. And CSCU appreciates the governor's support for higher education and process streamlining, but we do have some concerns about a couple of aspects of that proposed bill. First, I'd like to talk about the core CT system and the concern that we have with regard to the cost is directly related to the first section that was talked about earlier by Representative Haddad with Scott Gall from the Office of Policy and Management. It changes a may to a shall. So it's that language in and of itself without the new language that's added in requires us to go into core CT. And that is where the bulk of our estimation of the cost comes from. And we would recommend leaving the statute as it is, that section of the statute as it is. With regard to the current financial management system, we do report to core CT monthly on at our program level. We provide that information. I don't know about core CT specifically, but we will provide the information monthly at a programmatic level to the Office of the Comptroller and in core CT. So by account and by program. We're committed to working with state officials to refine the process that you've laid out in legislation for having us report into what is open checkbook, I believe, on the Comptroller's transparency website. I think we have some ideas that would make this better for transparency all around, and transparency is something that we're indeed in support of. The second piece that I would like to talk about is the language regarding P20 WIN. As one of the state agencies or institution of higher ed that reports data into P20 WIN, we have negotiated a data security agreement with the Office of Policy and Management that governs how our data will be handled when it goes into the what I call the aggregator, where it de-identifies and aggregates our information. We would recommend that the language reflect the role of the governing boards for P20 WIN and not leave the setting of standards solely to the Chief Information Officer at OPM. Those boards are made up of the individual agencies and units that provide information into that system. And I think that the legislation would be improved by requiring consultation with those entities with regard to what the security and data requirements will be going forward. Lastly, we think that language should be added that requires any of those standards to be compliant with state and federal law. We obviously, as a higher ed institution, are subject to FERPA. The ability to have our data and to utilize it has some very strict categories in which research being one of them that allows our data to even be released for any purpose. And so we would think that the statute should reflect that any of those standards must be in accordance with state and federal law.
Thank you, Aaron, for that. I don't see any questions, and we'll definitely make notes of your suggested changes. So great. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Up next is we're going to go again, bounce back and forth between public and private. So I have Monica Nugent with the Alliance, and then we will have Kelly Marie Valeries with the Office of Workforce Strategy. And Monica, I see, is here. Well, at least should be here, but we have a Monica. Okay, well, let's go to Savan Hines with Hartford Promise. Then I know Savan is here. Thanks for waiting around. It's good to see you. Can I have you press the button, the red button there, right in front of you, kind of under the microphone? If you, oh, silver button, I'm
Thank-
sorry. Yeah, good catch.
There we go.
Good catch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Try again. My name's Dr. Savan Hines, and I get to serve as president of Hartford Promise. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak today in strong support of Senate Bill 5. To me, this bill is not just about expanding access to higher education. It's really about securing Connecticut's economic future. At Hartford Promise, we've seen firsthand the power of scholarship funding in transforming lives, strengthening communities, and fueling Connecticut's workforce. Over the past 9 years, we've provided our own scholarships and support to over 1,100 college students. Our scholars are talented, driven students who are all from Hartford, one of our state's poorest cities. Yet when given the opportunity, 76% of them are choosing Connecticut colleges, unlike some of the data we heard earlier. And they're not just earning degrees, they're becoming the next generation of leaders, innovators, and problem solvers in our state. Right now, we all know the urgent workforce shortage that Connecticut faces with over 100,000 jobs going unfilled. Business leaders across industries, healthcare, manufacturing, education, finance, are desperate to attract and retain skilled workers. Our Hartford Promise graduates, 80+% choose to stay in Connecticut after completing college, and they're stepping up to meet some of this need. They're engineers at Electric Boat, nurses at Hartford Healthcare, educators in our public schools, financial and IT professionals at Travelers and Cigna, and so much more. And what they're proving every day is that local bright young minds are exactly the kind of talent Connecticut has to invest in if we're serious about long-term economic growth. But without strong, reliable scholarship programs like Roberta Willis, too many promising students are forced to abandon their higher education goals altogether. The loss of those kinds of bright minds isn't just a personal setback for each student, it's a loss for all of us. When financial barriers prevent students from reaching their potential, we as a state squander innovation, leadership, and economic growth that Connecticut desperately needs. Funding Roberta Willis Scholarship Program isn't just a matter of equity, it's a matter of economic survival. Investing in Connecticut students means investing in our state's future workforce, keeping Connecticut competitive, and ensuring that businesses have the skilled professionals they need to thrive. Students are right here, and they are choosing public and private schools. I would say to your question earlier about investing public dollars going to some of the private schools, that one point to remember is our public schools offer great education, but they are large environments, which are not always the right environment for some students. So what we've seen is our students are choosing public and private schools in Connecticut, and they're succeeding at schools like USJ and UHart, as well as at larger schools like UConn and Eastern. And so offering this scholarship to students across the board to stay in Connecticut makes sense to me. So I would really urge the passage of Senate Bill 5 and expanding the funding for Roberta Willis Scholarship Program. The return on this investment will be a stronger, more prosperous Connecticut for all of us. Thank you. I would say of a lot of, we have 1,100 scholars. I've talked to a lot of students. I understand the barriers that they're facing, and I also know what's helping them succeed. So happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Hines, thank you for your participation in the public hearing and the news conference and your leadership as part of Hartford Promise. I do not see any questions, so I think
Okay,
you're
great.
free to go.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Dr. Hines. Okay, we're going to have Kelly Marie Valeries, who is our Chief Workforce Officer, and then we'll go to Monica Nugent with the Alliance right after Kelly Marie. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp and Representative Sweet. Thank you for having me here today and the opportunity to testify on two bills in front of you. So I'll first start with Senate Bill 1250 regarding P20 WIN. OWS is in support of the governor's bill and has worked extensively with both our sister agencies and the workforce boards to underscore the importance of streamlining both the collection and evaluation of workforce data. Currently, workforce data is spread across a multitude of programs statewide that are not currently represented in the P20 WIN system. And this greatly limits our ability to access this data and understand the outcomes of the programs and the return on the investment that is being made. Reporting on the workforce programs also varies depending on the requirements. So the data that is collected for one program may not be the same data collected from another program across our workforce board system, our public higher education system, and the justice system. Over the course of the last year, OWS has led an initiative alongside the Department of Labor and the Department of the Office of Policy and Management to further improve the ecosystem of the workforce development data, specifically including the workforce boards. The workforce boards, WIOA federal programs are reported through DOL and the partnership of DOL in the P20 WIN system. However, they receive a lot of other federal and state dollars to their individual workforce boards that are not included in this data. The project that we worked on last year was in collaboration with DOL, OPM. It was funded by the Connecticut Project for us to look at how we can better improve the data collection and reporting mechanisms into P20 WIN. Currently, the workforce boards are not included as a required partner of P20 WIN, and we would like to ensure that they are requesting that we can request as a shall that they will report data in a manner that is aggregated across the other data elements that we're collecting. This will most likely be done through Excel spreadsheets and standardized formats through that. So we're not anticipating that this is going to cost any additional money. However, this is critical to build upon an existing infrastructure, specifically the existing P20 WIN network, which has developed the streamlined collection of education and data workforce. We also have an extensive research project with P20 WIN that is funded by a federal grant through the Department of Labor. The data has taken over 2 years to collect, or I'm sorry, just under 2 years to collect. And so we cannot in real time understand what our workforce system is doing. So we are in strong support of the P20 WIN and inclusion of the workforce boards and the office and the higher ed institutions and the justice system into P20 WIN.
Thank you very much. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
do not see any questions, so I think you're all set.
Okay, great. I just have one more quick one.
Okay, sure.
And I did neglect to mention that I am the new chair of the P20 WIN system. So I'm very excited to be able to work in collaboration with all the members of P20 WIN. The second bill that I wanted to support today is HB 6869, and this is the act expanding dual credit opportunities. So OWS is committed to ensuring that all students, regardless of their post-secondary plan, receive supported access to career pathways that are aligned to their interest and career needs. Part of our work centers around providing all students with seamless pathways from K through 12 to college and career, One powerful way to achieve this is through dual credit and dual enrollment. There are dual credit and dual enrollment programs scattered across the state. Currently, they are have many restrictions and abilities for these programs to be spread widely. So this bill attaches some specific language defining what is dual credit and concurrent credit, and also ensuring that there are accessible MOUs that are standardized across the system. Currently, every school district and every higher education institution has their own format for an MOU, which restricts the number of students that can participate in dual credit and dual enrollment across our higher education institutions. And we know that dual credit increases participation by students that are at risk of discontinuing school, that we increase high school graduation, we encourage college enrollment and retention, and we reduce the cost of college and enhance the likelihood that students will earn a college degree or a credential. So again, we're in strong support of this and happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Great. Thank you for your time. Great. And I don't see any questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Monica Nugent is up next, and then we'll go to Rebecca Wren with the University of Connecticut.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, Representative Bronco. Thank you for circling back to me. I appreciate it. My name is Monica Nugent. I'm the Public Policy and Advocacy Associate of the Connecticut Community Nonprofit Alliance, better known as the Alliance. The Alliance is a statewide association representing community nonprofits. Nonprofits deliver essential services to more than 500,000 people in the state and employ 118,000 Connecticut residents. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony on House Bill 6074, an act concerning the student loan reimbursement program. While the Alliance continues to support the spirit of this program and agrees with the proposed changes in the bill, we would urge this committee to consider including nonprofit workers as personnel who are exempt from the volunteer service requirement. Nonprofits provide services to our state's most vulnerable populations, such as those with behavioral and substance use disorders and those who have intellectual or developmental disabilities. Many nonprofit employees need to work considerably more hours due to staffing shortages and due to the nature of their work face higher rates of burnout. As a result, recruiting and retaining staff are considerable challenges for nonprofits in our state. Exempting nonprofit staff from this requirement would make it easier to access loan forgiveness and could aid in the recruitment and retention of staff. While volunteering for various nonprofits is commendable, nonprofit employees, the same employees that are required to sign off on those volunteer hours, are often not able to commit additional time to the different nonprofits or community organizations. They have already committed their careers to providing in their communities and providing vital services for the most vulnerable. We ask that this committee consider additional changes to the statute to exempt nonprofit employees, and we thank this committee for their time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I don't see any questions, so I think you're all set. Thanks again. All right, now we have, I think, at least one person from UConn. Are you by yourself? You have a crew. That's what I thought. Okay, well, thanks for sticking around.
Good afternoon. I'm Marika Wren. I'm the Associate Vice President of Budget Planning and Institutional Research at UConn. And with me today is Michael White, the Executive Director of Dining. And we also have Nathan First, the Vice President of Student Life and Enrollment. So thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony on behalf of UConn to the raised Bill 5170, an act concerning fees charged by institutions of higher education. We believe this bill is unnecessary and could result in less food services for our students and result in a revenue loss to the university. The proposed language in Section 1 is duplicative of existing state statute and University Board of Trustee bylaws. Per Connecticut Statute 10A-105, the University of Connecticut shall fix fees for tuition and shall fix fees for such other purposes as the board deems necessary. The board bylaws require that any new or change to existing tuition or fees must be presented to and approved by the board during the academic year, and that prior to making such changes, the process shall provide an opportunity for campus community comment. These changes are also approved well in advance of their effective date. The university openly discloses all approved tuition and fees to multiple university websites for prospective and continuing students prior to the requirement to pay an enrollment deposit. The manner in which the cost of attendance is published is prescribed by the U.S. Department of Education. Based upon this guidance, the University Office of Financial Aid publishes the direct cost and cost of attendance for all students to their websites. Further, details on the tuition and fees for all populations, undergraduates, graduates by campus, schools of medicine, dental medicine, law, PharmD, non-degree students can also be found on the University Office of the Bursar website. We also provide a tool to estimate the cost per student based upon a student's campus, academic level, housing, dining options, etc. Based upon the responses to these selections, the tool can estimate things such as their payment plan installments for increased transparency. This can be used in advance of paying an enrollment deposit. UConn also has grave concerns about the language in the bill regarding meal plans, and I would like to turn it over to Mike to discuss those in more detail.
Thank you, Rika. We believe that the requirement in the bill that UConn return each student amount of unexpended funds in such student's meal plan account at the end of the year would negatively impact the students' experience at the university and leave them with fewer food options, particularly those outside the normal dining services hours in the residential dining halls. Before I get into specifics, listen, UConn's won a lot of national awards. I'm not going to list them all, but a lot of those awards revolve around our experience with the students and our concern for the students' diets. Dining employs 420 full-time staff and over 900 student employees. This includes locations in Hartford and Groton. We are definitely one of the top 5 largest dining programs in the country, and Dining Services does not receive any funding from the state for its operations, and we rely completely on the student meal plan fees to survive. Last year alone, we served over 3.6 million meals to the UConn student body. If this bill moves forward as written, it will have a direct impact on the employment numbers mentioned above and reduce the department's purchases from numerous businesses across the state of Connecticut. Return of funding will result in fewer campus dining options, which our students currently enjoy. Simply asking for unused meal plan funds to be returned without understanding the varying complexities within the meal plan structure and creation will create damage to the student experience at the University of Connecticut. It is important to note that in Section 1A1 of the bill is in direct conflict with the expectations identified in Section 1B, specifically a board cost, that is the meal plan cost. Board costs or meal plan costs are one and the same. The university publishes the meal plan costs or the board rates before requiring a student to pay an enrollment deposit. The university works hard to ensure that our meal plans are cost effective as possible while ensuring that students have access to nutritious, healthy, and delicious food whenever they're on campus. Since our store's campus is so large, we try to ensure that a cafe has a full service meal available and that those cafes are strategically placed across campus so that students do not have to go too far during long study sessions, exams, and other stressful times. We offer 3 different meal plans at the store's campus to students living on campus in locations that do not have kitchens. Please see the appendix for more details on the meal plans. All options include unlimited access to the dining halls, allowing students to eat as often as they like on a daily basis. One of the options does not require the purchase of dining points that can be used in our retail settings across campus, like in locations like the Student Union and our various cafes. The costing of a meal plan is not simply based on food consumption. The meal plan costs are based on a variety of factors that go into operating a dining program: labor, benefits, food purchases, volatility in the markets, paper goods, chemicals, the list goes on and on. I'm not going to bore you with the entire list. All of this, all these things that go into running a dining program are contingent upon those board plan fees. These expenses exist no matter how much a student consumes. Many of these costs are transactional and they are planned, but many of them, while expected, occur at random, and the university needs all of its revenue to ensure that we can provide quality dining services. Eggs right now, unplanned. The rising cost in that has doubled in the last week alone. If this bill were to pass as it's written, fewer food locations would be available. Hours of operations would have to be impacted. The quality of food and the dining services that we provide would drastically diminish. Alternatively, the university would consider eliminating points and/or flex dollars from the meal plan. UConn does not believe that this is in the best interest of our students. It is our job to ensure they have access to nutritional and healthy foods. Additionally, the university exists in a competitive marketplace, and great dining services are key to attracting and retaining students. UConn urges the committee to not act on this legislation, and we thank you for your continued support. Happy to take any questions. I need to take my glasses off so I can see you all.
Thank you. Representative Acker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Michael and Rika, thank you for being here. Michael, thank you for the nice tour we got the other day with that fantastic dining hall. And I thought about the same exact thing. If you had, you create a budget, you spread that budget across the students that are on a meal plan. And then that goes to investment in what you're doing, in staff, and if there's at the end of that year, you said, oh, I got to give this portion back, and how you even budget that would be beyond me. And so that was something that I thought about when we were discussing this meal plan, give back. Do you know what percentage of the students that completely exhaust can you completely exhaust your, I'm wondering if that,
Absolutely. You can completely exhaust the points that come to the attached 3 mandatory meal plans. All the other components, the points that are added a la carte later, all those, we already refund them. That is a refundable thing. However, we do not do it on a semesterly basis. We do it at the end of their academic term when they're done in 4 years. It's unrealistic for me to return to you. If you bought $500 in points for your son or daughter in the first month that they attended, they lived off campus. You do that in the first month and they go through the first semester and they use $200 of it. I'm going to refund you $300 so that you can buy it again, so they can have the point access to their account again for the spring. Unrealistic. A tremendous amount. Now, to answer your first part of that question, last year, the unused points tied to the mandatory meal plans in the residence halls averaged out, we would have had done a $26 refund to the 11,500 kids on the meal plan. It would have averaged out to $26 remaining.
thank you for your testimony, and thank you for answering those questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Dad.
I was looking at your appendix, and you have access to the dining halls, flex passes, and dining points. Can you just go through with me what are people buying when they're buying a meal plan, and what are those 3 categories cover?
All 3 meal plans come with unlimited access to the dining halls. So with that, in the old days, when I was there in 1992, I guess that's old days now. In 1992, I bought a 17, 19, or 21 meal a week plan. Those plans are gone. Representative Bronco, I'm not sure when you were there, if you had a block plan or you had one of the plans that we still have, but we went through a phase where we had block plans. You could buy 500, 750 meals for the entire semester. Now what we have is just a meal plan that allows you unlimited access, and also unlimited access to anywhere on campus. So if I live in Whitney Dining Hall on the east side of campus and I eat breakfast at 7 a.m. with my roommate, and my buddy wants to have a study session at 8:30 over in the north side of campus, I can swipe my ID in for breakfast at Whitney. I can go over to North, I can swipe my ID again. And if I want to go to lunch 2 or 3 times a day, I have that access now. The other component that's common with all 3 are flex passes. Flex passes are used, traditionally they were used for guest access. Well, guest access was problematic during the pandemic when we did not allow outside guests. So we expanded the use of a flex pass to allow you to get a value meal. So now you can still use it as a guest access. So Representative Had, you came up, if I was a student, I could flex you in and use one of those flex passes to a dining hall. But I could also go to our retail outlet in the student union, Earth Walk and Fire, which is our equivalent to a Panda Express. I could get a bowl of General Tso's and a bowl of white rice and a beverage and trade a flex pass in for that. The flex pass is not costed the same as a dollar for dollar, and I'll explain that in a second. And the last piece of that is points, dining dollars. There are 2 meal plans, the value and the ultimate, that come with dining dollars. The value comes with $200 dining dollars and the ultimate comes with $500. A dining dollar works dollar for dollar to the student. They go up, they see a retail price on the board. It costs them $5 for a cup of coffee and a bagel. They can use $5 in points to pay for that. But it's based on a 50% value to us. You can tell just by looking at the cost of the meal plans. It's only $155 more to add $300 more in points. So it's about a 50%, and that's based on raw food costs for us, not on retail costs. So if there were a return on those plans, I would also argue that it's at half the value that the student may think it is. Those aspects of it are, and this is the same with the Flex Pass. The Flex Pass is based on a raw cost of putting the entire item, the package together, the sandwich, those pieces. So those are the 3 main components of the primary residential meal plans at the Storrs campus. They offer flexibility. I want to be clear there. Students wanted these extra pieces added. They don't want to just eat every meal in a dining hall. That's not what they want. They want to be on the go. They want to go to a study session and grab just a cup of coffee and a bagel or a muffin. They want to be able to grab something and run along with it. And the only way that happens is you have to have retail locations to handle that. We do not allow food out of the dining facilities unless you're on a specific to-go option. And so it's about safety, it's about flexibility, it's about friends. They wanted their friends to get access. How do we get that for them? That's where the Flex Passes came in. So these plans have really been created with sort of that idea that there's maximum flexibility within them.
And I'm sorry, earlier you said that you currently refund one of those categories. Is
No,
that
not on those 3 plans, but if
Okay.
I bought the bottom plan, which is our custom plan, does not come with any points. If I added $500 in points to that plan, and I could do that in $25 increments, those points, because I bought them a la carte, do not expire. They will roll over and they will stay on that student's account until they graduate or separate from the university, at which time they are refunded.
And just so I understand, are those points also offered 50 cents on the dollar, or are they paying a full dollar for?
They're gonna, when they use them, they're gonna pay the retail price on the board. But when those are that's a transactional purchase for us. That's money in and money out because it's refundable. So essentially for us, it is a complete transaction through and through.
I guess I'm I'm confused though. If you buy the points a la carte, are you buying 2 points for a dollar, or are you
No, you're buying
a
points.
dollar for dollar?
They're straight dollar for dollar.
Right. And so okay, I get it. All right. And then just because you had mentioned the price of eggs, how much do eggs cost right now? How much did eggs cost last week?
Last week, they were $63 for 15 dozen, about $4.33 a dozen. This week, they're $137 for the same 15 dozen. So we're up close to $9. It's a good example. It is a $70,000 price increase for us to now get from today to commencement. We go through 1,200 dozen eggs a week on campus, shell eggs. We do not pass that on to the student. I don't call the students all up and say, hey, your meal plan is going to go up $26 more because suddenly the Baltimore Bridge got taken out. There's a hurricane in Florida. There's fires in California. All of those commodity lines for us are very volatile. And when that volatility may be predictable in some situations, but in many it's not. Natural disasters are not predictable for us. We do study inflationary rates. We set our prices in December for the meal plans. We set our menu prices, our retail prices are set for September 1st. We don't change them. A restaurant right now is charging you 3% surcharge because of what's going on in the markets. Waffle House last week announced 59 cents more per egg, per customer, per purchase. We don't do that. We don't jack up the prices to make up for what's going on. A return on something like this may cause us to have to reevaluate how we handle our retail prices on a daily basis.
Thank you. Last question, because I had indicated earlier that I would ask this question. Let me see if I can remember what it was. Oh, how do you direct students to the websites that disclose fees?
So I would say that we direct them in many different ways, via their admissions offer letters. We would share that information throughout all of our websites. There are links to cost of attendance through the financial aid packaging. We can direct them to that detail. So we try by email, we try through printed materials that they receive, but end of the day, all of that detail is posted on our websites.
And so like when you accept a student or you're offering them and you're offering a financial aid package, someplace, I imagine, but I remember is a pile of paper. But that was, well, it was before you graduated, Mike. But after, before Representative Bronco too, by quite a bit. It was a pile of paper, but you're saying somewhere in the communication that you provide, there's some notice that the fees can be found on a website, or maybe I imagine it's a direct link in in an email that says that's where you can see those fees.
Yeah, and there's a shopping sheet that students can access when they go to view their financial aid awards and these sorts of things. We try to link everything, together so it's easy to find information. That's an ongoing undertaking for us, but as Rika pointed out, it's sent out and distributed. We have sessions at our open houses with dining services so that students can understand what options are available to them and ask questions to their heart's content.
I said that was my last question, but I lied, I guess, because I have one more question, and it's related to books. You guys currently offer an opt-out book bundle? And so how does that work, and how easy or hard is it to opt out of that book bundle?
So yeah, it is an opt-out program, and as part of they receive their fee bill, and if they choose to opt out, they just go into the online system and uncheck the box, and the charge comes off of their account.
I don't know how the system is constructed, but would it surprise you to hear that students have told me that they feel like they unclick that box and then the fee still appears on their bill, like that they find it, reportedly, I'm just saying reportedly, they find it difficult to find the box to uncheck. And then when they go through the process, they feel like sometimes doesn't work. How would you go about, is that a common request or complaint that you might have heard?
I haven't heard that complaint, but happy to look into it if there's any student that's concerned about it. So we feel like we had technical issues, we'd want to pursue that and try and resolve it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I would just add also that there's a period of time that they have to determine whether they want to opt out, and all the way up till 10th day of class. So if they don't do it by day one, or when their tuition fee bill is actually due, they have a period of time that they can choose to go in and opt out.
Representative Bronco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think just to summarize the discussion, when it comes to the fee disclosure, we're already doing that. So it's kind of a moot point. And with the meal plans, I was there for the unlimited. I took full advantage. It sounds like it would be impossible to even determine what someone would be theoretically owed for what they didn't use. Is that kind of correct?
In terms of on a meal swipe, yes, because it's unlimited. On a point basis, we would have an ending value tied to that student. But again, I would argue what those points, what we do with them, and I would argue what their actual value is.
All right, well, those we would just use at the end of the semester and go wait at Chuck and Augie's and dump the rest of the points.
Chuck and Augie's gone, but that's okay. But we do have point burn. We don't do the ramen thing that I listened to that section. We don't sell cases of soda. We don't sell the cases of ramen. We do have point burn, and a lot of that actually benefits the off-campus community. There's a significant underground movement on Reddit where students sell their flex passes to other students, and you'll see them gather outside of McMahon, and whatever exchange rate happens out there, and then they come on in. So students have been creative in ways to do that. We are actually also starting a program up right after spring break called the Roundup feature. So in our retail location inside the student union, a student will be able to round up their sale to the whole dollar if they're using their points, and it's going to go towards our food pantry. So we've also done Give a Meal in the past where students can donate a flex pass, and then we send the money from that donation over to the Student First Fund. So some of those things are incorporated into the activities that we do in a way to help students help other students, but also so they can reduce some of these balances.
Thank you. So say it passes as is, what's the impact? Higher cost, less? I mean, how do you even can you even determine that? How would you accommodate that law if it passed?
I think that students would, but you have to understand too how the consumer might react. So if the consumer knows that it's a refundable component, there's really the reality they may underspend. They may actually undereat as a result of it. They may choose that I want to have a $500 refund at the end of the year. we potentially would strip out the points from the meal plan and we would make them all exclusive a la carte purchases. Essentially, what we would end up with is a meal plan that has unlimited access to the dining halls. We would lower the number of guest swipes down to 10, let's say. This is all pending Board of Trustee approval, and I would make points a la carte. We need to know what the guarantee is for the revenues coming in so that we can plan ahead and that we can make the right amount of purchases on the commodities line. We have to be able to predict. We have to know how much food to prepare and how much food to buy on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a semesterly basis. It would limit that ability.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer because I think it, knowing the impact that it would have is helpful in determining it. And is it right to say that, I mean, if every student who had a meal plan literally went and swiped every day, 3 times a day, I mean, that would probably, I would assume, overburden the system because you're budgeting and planning for there to be some play in there and not someone eating literally unlimited every day, all day.
The way I would equate that is the football team eats 3 times as much as the average student in a much smaller facility. Meal plans are based on every student on average missing 1 meal a day, and that is traditionally breakfast. 45% of our transactions happen at breakfast based on the number of meal plans sold. When we get to lunch and dinner, we are upwards of 95% of those meal plans transacted. We've had to add late night operations. The current students today are not. The students, they're working later into the nights. They want more options on the back end of the day, less options on the front of the day. If every student actually came in, swiped 4, 5, 6 times a day, our commodities line would not be 23% of revenue. It would much be like 30% of revenue. It affects the margins. That's all it does. We would adjust. We have the facilities, the size to make adjustments, but it would definitely be more expensive.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And I do want to come to campus and I want to see that new dining hall. I guess I hear great things about it. So I will see you there soon, hopefully.
Great. All right. I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much. Appreciate your patience. All right. Up next is Kara Casimiro with the Danbury Public Schools. Do I see Kara? Kara is going to be remote. There's Kara. So Kara and then let me just ask, is Christopher Todd with? Okay. So Chris, you're on deck. Okay. And Kara, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. So thank you for having me today. Dear committee co-chair, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, ranking members, Senator Martin and Representative Bronco and members of the Higher Ed Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present testimony today. My name is Dr. Kara Casimiro, and I proudly serve as the superintendent of the Danbury Public Schools. I've worked for Danbury for more than 28 years as an educator and administrator, and it is my pleasure to present testimony on HB 6869 to advocate for potential critical dual credit funding to help bridge the gap between high school and college. But today, I want to convey more than just mere support for funds. I want to share a vision in Danbury for how dual credit needs to be reconceptualized and reorganized to maximize the potential for students and our state's economic future. Many of the existing dual credit models are designed to give students a taste of college or to get them a few credits in their pocket to help them get on their way after graduation. And these have been wonderfully, and they have served our students wonderfully in the past. But while that's a noble effort, it's not enough to truly impact and transform Connecticut's education system and our future workforce. HB 6869 needs to do more than fund passive credit accumulation for high school students. For this model to be truly effective, it must be executed as part of a much broader, career-connected, holistic vision that connects K-12 post-secondary education through a continuum of courses that begin in high school and are completed in college with a clear terminal objective for certification, clinical experience, and stackable credentials from associate's degrees on into bachelor degrees, including many other industry credentials that grant students access to employment. We need a new model that is dynamic and responsive to the changing needs of our state and region, which makes places like Danbury a destination for companies looking to cultivate fresh talent. I'm a proud graduate of Western Connecticut State University, and both of my children have attended other Connecticut public universities, Southern Connecticut and UConn. We believe in the power and benefit of a quality public education. But that said, our state universities, our four-year universities, have very few ladder programs or career-specific associate degrees embedded with stackable industry credentials with hands-on learning opportunities and experiences, things that bridge K-12 education to post-secondary. Granted, there are some career-focused programming out there, but it is few and far between, with internship and extern apprenticeship opportunities not being available to most students, often until their junior or senior year in college. This is far too late to begin a career focus or to determine if a career is the right fit. At the very least, we should be able to provide students with a clear path to employment. Right now, we do not. With the exception of a few select outliers, no one is really doing this collected work in higher ed. No one is doing the work in K-12. We're not reverse engineering education from a regional workforce needs to articulate the specific steps that students need to take to get from high school into a good paying job that contributes to the community and the region. We have seen too many of our students graduate and still have no idea what they want to do. Those who have finished a four-year college experience with no distinguishing certifications or job training in industry that allows them to get a foot in the door. There's a huge disconnect, and our students and children are paying the price. Our communities and businesses pay the price. We're all trying to fund, we're trying to support our students in their career endeavors, but also to support the job needs in the local economy. This is why Danbury Public School Systems created a wall-to-wall academy model, the first of its kind in the Northeast, and is modeled after the Academies of Nashville, which is a White House nationally recognized model. We've been working on this since post-pandemic, and our students are now in 10th grade, our first cohort that's about to go through. So we're very excited about that. In Danbury, we've already built 75% of the program in infrastructure using startup funds through private funders that are interested in high school transformation and redesign. The courses are designed, the sequences are in place, and the teachers are trained. The equipment has been purchased. The students have been scheduled. We are opening our new high school satellite campus next year, which is outfitted with state-of-the-art technology and training equipment aligned to our 7 academies and 21 pathways. Classes will have instruction and equipment that will make learning at the academies of Danbury more advanced and innovative than even some of our state colleges. The future is not career or college ready. It is both career and college ready. But to maintain a program and to grow it with every student in the district year after year, and with the new students and new teachers and in an evolving curriculum, this will require investment, partnership, and leadership from the state. I'm requesting that any funds allocated in HB 6869 be increased and allocated to do the following. Create and fund positions in key districts like Danbury to create, develop, and coordinate coursework between districts, business partners, workforce agencies, and higher ed. I heard the previous testimony from another person who indicated the lack of coordination around these efforts. Please fund the training and the development of K-12 staff to be able to plan for new curriculum and implement new programming at high school. We are desperately looking for that K-12, K-16 connection and to be able to coordinate with not just the universities, but with industry partners at the table as well. Fund positions at the Connecticut State campuses dedicated to working with K-12 districts and ensuring the institution builds on these alignments with regional K-12 districts. What is happening in Danbury right now is truly transformative. We invite you to come see for yourselves. We welcome all members of the Higher Ed Committee and the Education Committee and the Appropriations Committee to join us for a new Career Academy campus tour. Danbury is the future of education in Connecticut, and we're building a comprehensive career-connected high school model that is wall-to-wall, meaning every student participates, not just a select group of students who've been chosen for a program. When you see it, I assure you, you'll want to replicate it around in the region for the sake of the students and in particular with the regional economy. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. Hope to see you in Danbury for a tour and a preview of our new Career Academy, and I welcome any feedback and questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. I do not see any questions. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Up next is Christopher Todd with UConn, and then Elizabeth Sked with CEA.
Good afternoon. Honorable co-chairs, ranking members, and members of Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee, the University of Connecticut appreciates the opportunity to speak to you today about HB 6869, an act expanding dual credit opportunities. My name is Christopher Todd, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Office of Early College Programs at the University of Connecticut. Today, I speak to you as both a practitioner, both in my current role as a program administrator and my previous experience as a longtime classroom educator and dual credit instructor. Dual credit, the ability of a high school student to be simultaneously enrolled in coursework for both high school and college credit, goes beyond simply providing students a head start on their post-secondary path. Dual credit programming takes meaningful strides towards supporting a fully aligned PK-16 vision, where students have the opportunity to explore academic majors and career pathways, build academic resilience, and develop confidence as they meet collegiate and professional benchmarks. However, most importantly, dual credit programming allows students to challenge themselves with meaningful and relevant college coursework in the familiarity, comfort, and supporting settings of their high school systems. The University of Connecticut is proud to be the state's and nationally recognized leader in dual credit programming. As the nation's oldest concurrent enrollment program since 1955, UConn has provided meaningful access to rigorous college coursework to high school students across the state. As the state's largest provider of dual credit opportunities and currently the only NACEP accredited program, UConn's Early College Experience program is currently serving more than 19,000 students who are enrolled in over 33,000 courses across nearly 200 high schools statewide. In the last 5 years, more than 78,000 Connecticut high school students have enrolled in nearly 135,000 UConn courses through the UConn ECE program. Our commitment to providing access to high quality and meaningful college coursework taught by an incredible cadre of nearly 2,000 university approved high school instructors serves as a critical foundation to the dual credit access statewide. With more than 100 UConn courses across 6 university schools and colleges available to our partner schools, the program continues to adapt to the challenging demands of our partner schools' student populations, both their academic needs and career aspirations. Additionally, with nearly 1.6 million provided in program fee waivers this past academic year, the program and the university work to ensure that all students, regardless of financial status, have access to course offerings and programs. Over the past 3 years, the UConn ECE program has experienced unprecedented growth. Student access has grown 38%, course enrollments have increased by 42%, and the number of sections and actively teaching instructors has increased 18 and 13% respectively. In the past 2 years alone, the UConn ECE team and our incredible university faculty coordinators have approved more than 600 high school ECE instructors for new or expanded course credentials. However, the program growth is not unique to UConn and is reflective of similar dual enrollment trends across sister institutions in higher education in the state. This proposed bill addresses critical and missing pieces of Connecticut's dual credit efforts. A codified and articulated alignment across all dual credit program providers. By defining dual credit, specifically concurrent enrollment and dual enrollment programming, and by establishing the benchmark standards by which each dual credit provider will be held, this bill addresses those needs. The benchmark of NACEP accreditation standards will help ensure that all Connecticut dual credit program providers are working collectively to provide the best possible programmatic structures and outcomes for Connecticut students and families. The language within this bill reflects input from practitioners in the field of dual credit, underscores best practices in national dual credit accreditation, and builds off previous efforts from the Connecticut State Department of Education to advance and align dual credit programming. No one dual credit program can meet the needs of all students, schools, families statewide. It's the collective power of our dual credit programming in Connecticut, both public and private institutions of higher education, working in tandem that will create meaningful outcomes for students, regardless of their post-secondary aspirations and goals. Codifying language and requiring NACEP accreditation will ensure that all Connecticut programs do so with consistent quality and student outcomes in mind. We do ask for a minor change in the bill regarding the student privacy in section 4D of the bill as outlined in the language provided in testimony. The University of Connecticut and the Office of Early College Programs is proud to support this bill as proposed and looks forward to continuing to be a state leader in providing meaningful access to college coursework and credit for Connecticut high school students. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Appreciate it. I do not see, no, Representative Haddad.
Hi, thank you very much for your testimony. I appreciate it. Do you have a copy of the bill in front of you? Just curious.
I do not.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you to do this from memory then, and
Yep.
I'm sure. So as I look through the bill, I'm just trying to figure out like, what are we doing here? And it looks like, I mean, you referred to a common set of definitions.
Correct.
So where partly what this bill does, it creates a common language.
Absolutely.
I get confused every time we talk about dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, and
I'm happy
et
to.
cetera, et cetera. So
Yep.
it's good just to have a glossary, I guess.
Yeah,
that we
so
can-
the bill, you're exactly right, Representative. So the bill codifies language so that all institutions are using the same terms to talk to families and students in schools. Concurrent enrollment is when you have a high school teacher that's been certified by the university or the institution of higher ed to offer a course. So they're essentially adjunct or affiliate instructors, and that course is taught in the high school setting. Dual enrollment is when high school students physically step on a college campus and are taught directly by university or higher ed faculty. And so the State Department of Education is sort of pulling both of those modalities of dual credit into a common definition of dual credit access, but programs will seek accreditation based on whether they're a current enrollment program, a concurrent enrollment program, or a dual enrollment program.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then there's a section that also requires that those agreements of the institutions meet certain accreditation standards.
Correct.
Do we happen to know if there are any programs that are currently being offered in Connecticut that don't meet those standards?
Right now, the University of Connecticut's Office of Early College Programs is the only NACEP accredited program. Most programs in the state are making strides towards becoming NACEP accredited. Many of the standards that are required to be met for NACEP accreditation, the institutions of higher education have those systems in place. They just haven't gone through the formal accreditation process.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the last question, not sort of in the four corners of the bill, I guess, but like if a student enrolls in a concurrent enrollment program, that's one that's taught by the high school teacher at their high school and is earning college credit.
Correct.
Do they have to, is there a cost to participate in those programs?
Yeah, so it depends on the institution of higher education. So the student technically is enrolled as both a UConn non-degree student and their student at their high school. Our program has a fee of $50 per credit for students that are enrolled. Any students that are free or reduced lunch are waived from program fees, so they don't pay anything for the program. Of our 188 partner high schools last year, 45 high schools were fully waived, which meant that students at those high schools didn't pay any fees to access our program.
And are there in the other districts, are those costs traditionally picked up by the student and his or her family, or maybe a school district might
Yeah, there's a
pay for the cost?
There's a variety of needs across our different partner districts. So we have a third-party pay option. So we have some opportunities where students and their families directly pay for the fees. We have some districts and partner high schools where the district themselves and the partner school pick up those fees. We have other partner schools where they have a third-party provider, whether it's a local investor, a local business, a philanthropic, that pays those fees on behalf of the district. So we try to be as open as possible in terms of accommodating where the funds are coming from.
And is the same also true for a dual enrollment program? That's one where, like, I guess a high school student would be taking a course on your campus?
Yep. So it varies from institution to institution. Currently at the University of Connecticut, students other than students who attend E.O. Smith High School, students in the state of Connecticut have to pay the full non-degree tuition rate. So there is currently a proposal that the provost is working on with the Board of Trustees that would look to lower that rate for high school students that are physically looking to step on campus, working through our office, again, providing access where we can.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I don't, in my binder, you might have submitted your testimony already. I don't see a copy here. I only reference that because you had a specific recommendation for a change to the legislation. I want to make sure we get that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, I do not see any other questions first. Thanks so
Thank you
much
for your
for your
time.
time. Appreciate it. Okay, we're down to the last few remaining. Elizabeth Sked, supposed to be remote. I don't see Elizabeth. Oh, you're here. Okay, great. There you are, front and center.
That is some bright light. Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Sked, and I am the Education Issues Specialist for Connecticut Education Association. I also coordinate CEA's Aspiring Educator Program with college student members in over 14 public and private institutions of higher education in Connecticut. CEA supports Senate Bill 5, which will increase funding for the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship Program. The scholarship program assists students in pursuing higher education with a focus on helping those who need it most. The increasing cost of college education has made it more difficult for many students to access opportunities that can help them build a better future. The scholarship program plays an essential role in leveling the playing field, offering students financial support that allows them to attend college without accruing a large amount of student debt. This scholarship can be a lifeline for many students who otherwise would not have the means to attend college. These students are often the first in their families to pursue a higher education, and with additional funding, we can ensure that more students have the chance to succeed. By expanding access to higher education, we are developing highly skilled and educated workforce that will benefit our state's economy, foster innovation, and meet the needs of employers across various industries. This in turn strengthens our communities. As the Education Issues Specialist, as I said, I serve as the organizer for the Aspiring Educator Program. As we all know, Connecticut is facing a critical teacher shortage. I hear countless times from the students I work with that they're struggling financially to make ends meet and wish they had additional scholarships. The Roberta Willis Scholarship Program could benefit many of the students I work with on a daily basis. As a state, we have an obligation to invest in the education of the future and the future of our youth. Increasing funding for this scholarship program demonstrates commitment to providing equal opportunities for all students, regardless of their financial circumstances. In closing, I strongly urge you to support Senate Bill 5 and approve the increased funding for the Roberta B. Willis Scholarship Program. Senate Bill 5 demonstrates an investment in the future of both our state and its workforce. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for your advocacy for Senate Bill 5, and I think connecting the dots for us on the teacher shortage and why expanding the scholarship program is part of that, addressing it. Thank you. I don't see any questions. Okay. Next, Jenna Grasso, not coming. Jenna is not going to be joining us. Mario Volpe, Mario, rather. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's been a long day. Good to see you, Mario. I think I know what you're testifying on, too. Well, that's all right. Yeah.
So first, good afternoon. My name is Mario Volpe, and I just first want to preface my testimony by stating that I am testifying today as an individual, and my testimony does not reflect the views or beliefs of any outside organizations or employers I'm affiliated with. Got that out of the way. But Chairman Slapp and Haddad, Vice Chairs Gadkar, Wilcox, and Rochelle, ranking members Martin and Bronco, and other distinguished members of the Higher Education Employment and Advancement Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in House Bill 6074, an act concerning the student loan reimbursement program. I am proud to support this legislation. However, I would like to urge the committee to amend this committee bill to re-implement and expand upon the language regarding hardship waivers that was present in the original proposed bill, specifically item number 3. There's currently a hardship waiver that exists within the reimbursement program where applicants request a waiver if their degree cannot be completed due to a personal or family medical or financial hardship. I believe this legislation being heard today should be amended to expand the scope of this waiver and include exemptions to the 50 service hour requirement currently established in the student loan reimbursement program for people with serious chronic illnesses and other conditions that may prevent applicants from completing their service hours that are set forth in the legislation. I would like to briefly touch upon the story of a good friend of mine, Michael Esposito, that showcases why this is a need. Mike has been a lifelong resident of Ansonia, Connecticut. He attended the University of Connecticut after graduation in 2023 and has stayed in state and begun a young career here in Connecticut. Mike fits the umbrella of who the student loan reimbursement program was designed for. A young professional who the program was designed for, and the state would want to incentivize to stay and establish themselves after completing a degree at an in-state university. He checks off all the eligibility requirements set in the program, and when he became aware of the program last year, he was excited to begin his public service hours and his application. That changed in September when Mike was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and which led to a November surgery. And weeks later, while still recovering, his doctors found a suspicious lymph node, and shortly after the new year, he began chemotherapy treatments. He has not had the time nor strength to complete his service hours for the student loan reimbursement program. And the one barrier currently preventing him from accessing the program is his fight against cancer. He still has the need for student loan reimbursement, but he physically cannot access it because he's immunocompromised and he can't physically go for his volunteer hours. And when he came to me and shared his disappointment, I was physically hurt by it. I know personally how hard he works, and he was ready months in advance to go out there and volunteer. And, you know, he was making a plan for it, and it got derailed. The need was still there. And now my main concern is for him. Now when he can't work now, he's forced onto family medical leave. His salary, he's protected for now, but he doesn't know how long his treatments will last. He has increased medical expenses and other uncertainties in his life. This relief would be a great help to him. He still has his loans. Those aren't going away. I think people with serious chronic illnesses should be entitled to a program like this, and an already established waiver for hardships, albeit in a different circumstance, is already established. I believe with a change to amend it a little bit to allow people to change it to so people with going through a hardship in the application process would open it up and create more equity in the process. So people going through a similar process of Mike would, you know, open it up. But yeah, my apologies. I urge you all to support HB 6074 with additions to the language regarding hardship waivers. While this is a personal example that has made me passionate about a legislative fix, I can assure you that there are constituents in your district who are facing similar battles. I'm hopeful this legislation advances and becomes law, while it may not ultimately benefit my friend, since by the time if it becomes enacted, I have no doubt he will have recovered and be strong enough to complete his service hours for next year's application pool. I believe it is critical that we reinforce the program and establish an exemption that will address individuals going forward with personal hardships, starting with next year's application period and subsequent years going forward. Thank you for your time.
Mara, thank you. And question for you, there is a part of the bill that there is a hardship waiver that you can apply for. Do you know if your friend applied for that?
So the hardship waiver, I have the actual, on the hardship waiver, it says a hardship, this is from the Student Loan Reimbursement Program website. And it says a hardship waiver may be requested if a degree cannot be completed because of personal or family medical or financial circumstances. So I'm not an expert, I'm not an attorney or anything like that. But my understanding of that is that's if you can't, my understanding of the waiver is if you can't finish your degree and you still have student loans. It's not if you're applying to the program. I could be mistaken on that, but I don't believe it applies to the application period.
Okay, we'll take a look. I understand your point, and you know, certainly sympathetic. It seems like if your friend wouldn't qualify, then who would for, you know, it certainly has medical.
Yeah, and
conditions, so.
yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt and intrude, but I think if that is the case, I think if there's already a waiver established for that interrupted your degree, perhaps it could be amended to include the application period. Because it's for my understanding of it, it's for the pass. If I went, if in my undergrad, I did 2 years of college and I took loans out in those 2 years, and then I had a chronic illness and I had to drop out, but I still had those loans. And then this program came into effect this year and I applied for reimbursement. I could apply for that waiver and then get reimbursement on those loans I had been paying off.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Understood.
thank you.
Yeah, Representative Akron, I believe has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Myra, you did a fantastic job, by the way, and Michael should be proud. Hopefully he's gets a chance to view this on your behalf and what you're doing to support others. So Michael, though, you said was somebody that was volunteering. Is that what it was?
So he had not gotten the chance to start his volunteer hours. It was very shortly after. It was literally the program was not, by the time he found out, just a week or two later, he was diagnosed and then the whole timeline began. So he had not started his volunteer hours yet.
But he applied. Is that what you did? Do you apply to this for this reimbursement?
So you have to, I believe you have to start your application you need to create a packet with it. So
Okay.
he did not submit an application, but
Okay.
you need the application started on January 1st. So you need to complete your service hours to do it in the first place.
Okay. Thank you for that information. I appreciate that.
thank
Yeah,
you,
okay, good. I'm not involved with that in terms of using it. So I appreciate your time. Again, thank you for being here.
Yes.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
And I would like to say, I believe he'll be submitting written testimony. I'll submit mine electronically as well. I hope you can view his at some point in your busy schedules.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have one more person who is a late sign up, but we welcome them. Is this Supriyo Chatterjee? And I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Good afternoon, Senator Slapp, Representative Haddad, and members of the Higher Education Employment Advancement Committee. This is about Bill 6075, an act concerning instructors for an airframe and power plant certification program. Is to specify the qualification for instructors of an airframe and power plant certificate program operated by the Connecticut Technical Education and Career Systems. I fully support this bill. My name is Supriyo B. Chatterjee. My contact information is at the footnote. I'm in West Hartford, Connecticut. I'm in the business technology sectors for economic development as a consultant and an analyst in the Hartford regional industries, which includes aviation and aerospace. For a few years, I had an office at the Hartford Brainerd Airport, where the Connecticut Aerotech School for Aviation Maintenance Technicians is also located. The views expressed in this testimonial are my own. I fully support Bill 2025, HB 6075, as it is a timely bill that addresses the growing demand of the aviation industry and the development of the Connecticut workforce to meet it. A 2-year training program in the airframe and power plant A&P after secondary school can put a youth on the path to a promising career in aviation. In addition to the above-mentioned A&P certification that your bill provides for, I suggest that the committee give some consideration for facilitating additional training in avionics, which is in the industry is known as the NCAT certification. The aviation industry urgently needs to expand aircraft maintenance programs like A&P to include avionics training due to a significant shortage of qualified technicians. Integrating the FAA-recognized ATSM NCAT aircraft electronics technician avionics certification would address this critical industry demand while enhancing career opportunities for graduates. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a 5% growth for avionics technicians through 2031 with 3,000 annual job openings. And I have the reference in the footnote. The current industry salaries range from $65,000 to $95,000, reflecting a very high demand. And this is achievable barely 2.5 years after high school if you go through a vocational training like this. Major employers like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and commercial airlines, notably at Bradley Airport, consistently struggle to fill avionics positions due to the shortage of qualified personnel. Modern aircraft rely very heavily on sophisticated electronic systems. They're requiring specialized maintenance expertise. The industry faces a demographic challenge as 40% of current avionics technicians are approaching retirement within the next 5 years. Post-COVID aviation recovery and expanding the unmanned aerial vehicle, this industrial drones, those sectors will further intensify the need. Mandatory avionics upgrades, including ADS-B implementation, just the next generation of aviation, create additional demand for qualified technicians. The Connecticut Technical Education and Career System already has a network of schools and resources, like the one at Brainerd Airport, that provide the foundation for further vocational training in avionics for the aviation industry. I thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for your testimony. I do not see, let me just check online to make sure none of my colleagues have, no, I don't see any questions. So you're free to enjoy the rest of your afternoon, what's left of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that is going to conclude our public hearing, unless there's anybody else who, I don't see anyone who's dying to testify. So, okay, we'll have to let the public know here about, about our next dates. We do have planned session days coming up on Monday and Tuesday, so that will impact us a little bit. So as soon as we know them, we'll post them. So, all right, great. We are adjourned. This public hearing for higher education employment advancement. Thanks everyone.